Yep, we're recording. But wait, what episode is this? This is
I
episode.
want to say it was like 6 or 7.
I think this is episode 7. I think you're right. Oh, right when I was about to say the intro. Hey, Brandon, what's up?
Hey man, how's it going? I got good news.
Well, can you say before no me to no disrespect when it says, but before you say the good news, let me just say the intro first, if you don't mind.
Oh, you're recording? You're recording?
Yes, I'm recording, dude. I just hit the record button, and as soon as seconds later, you ended the chat.
Do you wanna retry that?
Brandon, this is Bryce.
Do you wanna
Bryce, this is
retry that?
Brandon. No, we're already recording.
Hi. Wait, hold on.
Hey,
Bryce. So look, if we're gonna talk NASCAR, who is your favorite driver before we get too much into detail?
like of all time or
If
currently.
it's if it's look okay, anybody but Logano. Come on, man. I don't
Trust
care.
me, I hate Logano.
Yeah, I like this guy already.
It's like my all-time guys. I'm a Jimmy Johnson fan first, but my current day guy is William Byron.
All right.
But yeah,
Uh,
I hate Logano
uh,
for obvious reasons.
please don't kill me when I say this, but I am a fan of Logano. Oh boy, I'm gonna get.
Yeah, get him out. Get him out. Oust him. Oust
Boo
him.
this man!
We won the
Yeah,
clock
no,
10
like, okay.
years. We won the
I'm
clock
just gonna
10
say
years. I
this.
would say the same thing, but y'all just said.
In my personal opinion, there's guys that I kind of don't like, and then there's Joey Logano. Like, here's the thing. I don't like Bubba Wallace because he talks shit on social media, but when he gets to the track, he has nothing to say. But Logano, oh God, he just boils my blood just talking about him.
Episode
Fucking
7 of Turn
Logano,
4
dude. I
Sparks
swear.
Controversy, and already we're getting laughs and controversial names up. Welcome to episode 7 of Turn 4 Sparks Controversy. As of this recording, it is March 26th, 2024. I'm on with my homies Bryce and Brandon.
Hello, we're gonna be talking about NASCAR for the next hour 30. Hello.
What's up,
Yeah,
guys?
I
We
felt
back.
like we've been talking about F1 too much. I felt like it'd be nice to have a little change of pace.
Well, you
I
complained
mean,
about that, so we're going to change that.
I would
Well, we talked about
I
NASCAR
wouldn't
before.
say I wouldn't say complained. I just feel like we need like a little change in pace. I tried to bring up IndyCar, but everybody said boo this man now. But yeah, speaking of NASCAR and IndyCar, um I had a genuine theory I was thinking about a few days ago. Guys, what if we all know Roger Penske purchased the rights to IndyCar back in 2019, but he's not really doing a good job of maintaining the sport. Now, this wouldn't be the first time NASCAR bought another sports league. I mean, in like what, a couple years back, maybe a little bit more than that, they bought IMSA, and IMSA's doing perfectly okay. They're actually getting a bunch of new fans as we speak. But what if NASCAR bought IndyCar? What do you guys think would happen?
I feel like for the most part, they definitely be in a much better place than they are right now. Yeah, not to mention, I feel like their marketing would be so much better too, because their marketing is terrible.
Yeah, no, like I don't know if you saw that meme, but I had it like on TikTok. I've been seeing it for like a while now. It was that video of SpongeBob when he was like breathing heavily at the grill and talking about the grill, and
Oh my
the caption of the video was IndyCar marketing team when they have to promote a race that isn't the Indy 500.
God. That is spot
Because
on.
guys, here's the thing too. A lot of people in motorsport watch the Indy 500 too. Even if you're not an IndyCar fan, you guys will make an effort to watch the Indy 500, almost like how a lot of people try to go out of their way to watch either the Daytona 24 Hours, the Daytona 500, or even the 24 Hours of Le Mans. But it's almost like somebody watching the Super Bowl, but they can't name any other teams besides the two that are competing. So the most common name when I tell somebody to name an IndyCar driver, I usually hear Mario Andretti. I'll let it slide. And sometimes a lot of people know Will Power, but then again, that's because he went on like that social media liking spree where he just liked anything that appeared in his feed. But you know what? At the same time, what could we expect too if NASCAR were to purchase IndyCar? Like more ovals on the calendar, maybe more doubleheader weekends where you'll have Indy and NASCAR sharing the same facility. I mean, it's happened before a couple months back with the Texas Truck Race and the Texas IndyCar race where they were all together in one facility, and it was a pretty good success.
To answer your question, Brandon, if they was to do that with IndyCar and NASCAR, or NASCAR purchasing rights to IndyCar, or vice versa, there would be here and there double headers, so Indianapolis especially, but not just that, but also with IndyCar, more ovals. You even brought up the
Oh, absolutely.
you even brought up the question to me, should IndyCar add more ovals?
And you said no.
I had my reason for that. Vegas 2011.
At the same time, too, the safety compared to 2011 is completely different. Like IndyCar chassis now, especially with that halo on board, they're almost built like mini carbon fiber tanks, so to speak. I mean, arguably, I think the halo would have probably ended up saving Dan Weldon. It would have probably ended up saving Senna in Formula One. But I think if IndyCar is desperate to get their numbers up, they need to bring back more ovals. And that's coming from somebody that races on circuits mainly. As much as I love, NASCAR and Indy, I mean, I think more ovals is probably the way to go.
I can agree the same. It's like, for me, it's a yes and a no, because it's like what Calvin alluded to earlier. It's like, don't get me wrong, the safety obviously has come such a long way, especially since 2011 with Dan Weldon getting killed, and even 2015 with Justin Wilson dying. But I do still feel a little bit wary because, just again, these are not stock cars. We all know this. These are open-wheeled race cars that go up to excess speeds of over 210. So it's like, and then heck, even with some of the safety features, we can't forget 6 years ago, Robert Wickens is still paralyzed, like from the neck down, I think,
Still
from that Pocono wreck. So it's like,
that is correct.
From what I can still concur. I mean, I'm open to it. Don't get me wrong. I am totally open to it, but I just do not know for certain if the drivers will be open to it, because, I mean, the drivers themselves, especially over the years, have also pushed heavily back on racing on ovals. They want to race more on the road courses and less on the ovals because of all the danger, all the risks and stuff that come with racing on the ovals as fast as they race on those things. But trust me, I'm totally open to it, but we just have to see how it would go and how the drivers would react.
It also depends which,
that's just my
it also depends which ovals we're talking about here too.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
Obviously, if they were to bring more ovals in IndyCar, exclude Las Vegas. Exclude that.
Especially,
no, don't bring them.
Looking back to now, I live in hour 30 away from Pocono Raceway, and I've seen IndyCar races there before. Like, the difference between a stock car and a open wheel car, just like Bryce said, in a stock car, you have more risks to take. Like, if you want to go wheel to wheel with somebody and put them in the wall, there won't be that much of a consequence. But Pocono is literally nicknamed the oval that handles like a road course, and it's so narrow but so fast that one little tap can dictate not only the end of your race but potentially the end of your life.
And that's just open wheel in general. If you really think about it, just one. That's part of also why when it comes to even like F1 and even IndyCar, they don't allow stuff like blocking at all. Like, you get penalized for doing that because of how much of a risk you're taking when you make very erratic moves in these cars. Because like Brandon just said, just one little tap pretty much ends everything, and it might not even just end your life. It could even end a bunch of careers, and it could end it could end badly for a multitude of drivers, especially if you're racing against like a bunch of different people that are around you. Especially if it's like in the last couple laps of a race or whatever, or even in the middle of a race. Like, it doesn't matter sometimes. Like, just one little tap and it completely ends everything.
Oh yeah, and look back at some of the open wheel greats of my parents' generation, so to speak. All those moves that they raced with and driving styles, they would be racking up penalties left and right. But you know, to conclude pretty much everything of that, I think that IndyCar getting purchased by NASCAR from Roger Penske, I think it's probably the better option because Roger Penske isn't doing much with it in the long run.
It's definitely the better way to go.
Something I also want to bring up too. Do you guys feel like the next gen is delivering or not delivering on most of these road courses?
I think so. I definitely think it's starting to. It's definitely better, I feel like, than where we were 2 years ago with it. That's for certain. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Like just coming off
tire wear is still a problem.
Just coming off of Coda too. It is a little boring to see one guy run away with it, obviously, but Coda can provide some pretty good racing. I mean, look back to 2022 when that 3-car battle between Bowman, Allmendinger, and Chastain played out. Chastain bowling balled the last of them. But then again, we got to remember this circuit isn't exactly built for this type of race car. And I'm not going to lie either. Would I say there's a road course problem in NASCAR? Not entirely. Like, don't get me wrong. As somebody that enjoys street circuits, I didn't really like the idea of Chicago coming to the NASCAR schedule last year, only because my thought process was we already have a facility, Chicagoland Speedway. It's provided great racing in past years, and we're completely ditching it. We're completely ditching it to go to some street circuit that is a waste of time, money, and effort. But in the end, the race was actually pretty good. So, I mean...
And the first time we're doing Van Gisbergen again, too.
Oh, yeah. Then again, though, we got to remember that we have some people saying that, oh, wow, he comes in from another race series and he proves how much of a joke NASCAR drivers are. Now, that's where I automatically assume people did not watch the race at all, because we had F1 champion Jenson Button, who got lapped in that race.
And spun at one point.
And SVG, keep in mind, this car is very similar to what they drive over in Australia. And SVG has way more street circuit experience compared to most of the Cup Series grid. And let's not forget, too, V8 supercars. Look at their calendar. Half their calendar is street circuits.
And this is NASCAR's.
For real.
This was the Chicago street race. It was NASCAR's first full-on street circuit in the history of the sport. If you count.
That's how you know people
if you count the Daytona
race if they're saying something like that.
If you count the Daytona Beach circuit that they had in the 50s, 1958, and earlier years, where they raced on the beach, but also on the public road section. You can also kind of count that because, again, the public road section. But the first full-on road course, or the street course, Chicago. The first one ever was last year, won by, again, SVG.
Yeah. As of right now, I don't entirely think there's a road course issue, you know what I mean? But it kind of just goes to show that I was wrong about the Chicago street circuit. But going into these next couple weeks, and I also just want to mention, as at the time of this recording, William Byron is the first multiple race winner of the season right now, which is making him, or putting him in a very comfortable spot. Last year, call me biased if you want, but I think that championship should have been William Byron's.
Bryce would agree with you on that.
It should have.
But Bryce, we even touched on it.
Trust me, as a Byron fan, you already know I absolutely 110% agree with you.
Here's the thing too. I'm not upset at the fact that Ryan Blaney won the title. I mean, it's good to see that I used to be very strongly critical of Ryan Blaney. I didn't think he was that good, and I mean, it's nice to see that he kind of proved a lot of people wrong. Good for him on winning the championship, but at the same time, I wanted Byron to win. I wasn't upset that Ryan Blaney won it. I just wanted Byron to win. Yeah,
I'm
right
Calvin,
there
I
with
saw.
you. It still kills me that we didn't win that championship, but it's like I said to Calvin a while back in one of our last couple podcasts that we did. It's mainly Byron and the 24 team's fault. They whiffed on it when it mattered late in the race. They didn't adjust on the car the way they should have. Blaney and his team did. They got the adjustments right. Blaney had the better long run car than Byron did. And not to mention, Byron also got beat off pit road, not just by Blaney, but especially by Larson, too.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also got to factor into the fact, too, that at Phoenix, it's just so difficult to pass when you get put back in traffic and in dirty air. So it's like he was kind of out of it at that point. That's why I hate Phoenix as the championship race. Phoenix should not be the championship race.
I was just gonna start talking about that too. Phoenix is good to have it like in the middle of the calendar or schedule, like in the middle of it randomly. But at the same time, this track just isn't really the right track to decide a championship. Homestead Miami Speedway, nostalgic vibes and all that. It was pretty solid to decide a championship. Maybe it's not the track exactly. I think there were better options. I would say Auto Club Speedway, but they demolished that track, and that was the best track the next gen performed at, which was a huge mistake on NASCAR's part. They kind of just let the best track the next gen raced at just die out of nowhere and gave us a short track.
It's one of the dumbest things they've ever done. But go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the most ridiculous. I freaking loved Auto Club, man. The fact that they just tore it down makes me sad.
They just and I look at pictures. I'm actually looking at I decided to open up Google Chrome and I'm looking at pictures right now of the current progress, and this just makes me sad, man. Like, this track was so amazing for so many years, and now it's gutted.
It's nothing but a barren wasteland. They actually tore it down.
I had one of you tell me that NASCAR failed to realize that there are more short tracks. Excuse me, there are more short tracks out there, and demolishing in my case, California Speedway would be a waste.
Dude, Rockingham is right there on the cutting board. Like, Rockingham is right there in front of their face, and yet it's not being used.
And dude,
Rockingham,
Milwaukee Mile, another one for crying out loud.
I remember seeing
Rockingham
Eric one of Eric Estep's video. Sorry to cut you off, Brandon, but let me say this real quick. I remember seeing Eric Estep's video a while back regarding Rockingham Speedway. When he went to the circuit, the track was still obviously abandoned, but it was still usable. I mean, damn, the track surface was freshly paved. So, Bryce, to your point, Rockingham, it's right there for the taking. It's right there.
It is. Milwaukee Mile. The trucks race on Milwaukee Mile and also race on Indianapolis Motorsports Park. Those are like 3 short tracks in the country that they can use. Heck, even Wilkesboro is being used right now for the All-Star race. You're telling me they couldn't have used any of those instead of cutting down Auto Club? It may, again, just like with NASCAR after 1996, taking Wilkesboro off the schedule, it don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. Like, make it make sense.
Brandon, what were you saying?
Especially sorry, I just want to add on to what he was saying. I just thought I'd mention too, if you especially watch a lap of Auto Club, or if you were in my case and you take a lap on iRacing, you can feel every little bump on Auto Club, and it just makes it so unique. It keeps you on the edge of your driving seat, or if you were to take a lap on there. And now, like I was saying, they took everything away from us for literally no reason. And it's not like they were doing it. Auto Club was selling some of their ground too. Can I just also mention another thing too? It's not like most racetracks are being butchered. So if you look at Nashville Superspeedway, on Google Earth, there's that Amazon facility right next to Nashville Superspeedway. But the catch is, if Amazon really wanted to, they could buy out Nashville Superspeedway, destroy it, just put more Amazon buildings there. But Amazon doesn't want to do that, thank God. But it's it's just heartbreaking, you know what I mean?
And NASCAR just sometimes they don't use their heads in situations like this. Which, speaking of, I don't know if y'all heard about this, but when the drivers were complaining about, they were talking about getting more horsepower into the cars. Steve Phelps said there was nothing wrong with that, or he doesn't know what the problem is. I don't know if y'all heard about that, but I remember that was a thing for a while now.
Oh yeah,
And
especially if you look back on the, sorry to cut you off, Bryce, but if you look back on like
No,
the
it is.
sounds that the early 2000s stock cars made, they sound beautiful.
Bryce, what were you
And
saying?
it's obvious why they sound so. It's obvious why they sound so good. I was about to go on like somewhat of a rant here, but I was gonna bring that up too because it makes me so angry that what NASCAR is failing to realize right now, they're looking at everything but the engine right now. They continuously continue to cut horsepower down without looking at what the big problem, what the big issue is. There's like, here's what I want. Here's my proposal to making racing at a lot of these tracks so much better than what it is. One, just like the drivers, fans, teams, and everyone is clamoring for, bump up the horsepower. I'd say you at least bump it up to at least 800 max or 750, but me, at least 800 plus is what I would say. Two, get rid of the tapered spacer. That tapered spacer is not helping out at all. Bump the horsepower up, get rid of the tapered spacer. And and also, with the whole thing here, bring some more, what was I about to say? Yeah, cut the tapered spacer, get rid of the tapered spacer, put some more horsepower on these things, and not only that, but also lower the downforce. More downforce makes these cars just train race forever and ever. So those are my three little proposals there. Get rid of the tapered spacer, up the horsepower, less downforce. That's going to make a lot of racing at a lot of different racetracks, especially tracks like Phoenix, race so much better. But of course, is NASCAR going to listen to that? No, because the problem with NASCAR is they're their own worst enemy. And they're going to continue to be that because they always think they have the answers to every solution when they don't. It's the biggest, it's been one of NASCAR's biggest problems forever. It's not even just right now. That's always been one of their biggest flaws. They always think they have the answers to every situation and solution when they should be taking at least some kind of like suggestions from the teams, manufacturers. I mean, it's bad when I want to say, I think it was the manufacturers, or I remember Larson said this recently, that they were just talking recently. Even Hamlin brought it up, and I think his Action Instrumental podcast, that they could bump the horsepower up to like 800 or more by tomorrow and have it ready for the next race. But NASCAR just doesn't want to do it. I don't understand it. I don't get it, dude. I don't understand it. They are so out of touch. It's like NASCAR and the drivers and the teams themselves are so out of touch. It's ridiculous. It's like, I don't even know what to say, dude. It makes me so angry talking about it because on one hand over here on the left, you have the drivers, teams, and manufacturers all on the same page. And then you have NASCAR and all the officials and everybody over here on the right-hand side that just so oblivious to it, they don't even want to bother hearing anybody out. They just want to continue to keep doing what they want to do without even bothering to hear out the people that are making their product go around. It's ridiculous. It's one thing to not listen to the fans, but it's another thing to not listen to the guys that put their freaking lives on the line every single race weekend, every single year to make your product go around. It's so infuriating.
NASCAR has been
drives out all, not only all the like all the old diehard fans, but also like the people that want to get into it. You know what I mean? And another thing too, NASCAR is kind of making the mistake of like leaning more towards the people that are like just getting into it, like influencers and most people from like Gen Z just getting into the sport. And they're kind of leaving behind the old fans that have been watching since like the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s. And yeah, I think I definitely agree with adding more horsepower. It's just the way to go.
Exactly.
Excuse me.
NASCAR has been in such a
I'm telling you, man.
questionable but yet concerning hole as of these last how many years now?
I'm telling you, man. If you do those things that I just mentioned, you bump the horsepower up, you get rid of the tapered spacer, and you pretty much cut the downforce down, and you add less downforce instead of more downforce. It's gonna make so much of a difference. It will. Like there will be so much more passing opportunities and so many more opportunities for these guys to just race. It's like I mean, there is nothing in my eyes more frustrating than watching a car. Literally, you have two cars. You have a car chasing one, and then you have a car that's leading that one. For shorter terms, the car that's behind gets to it, and then the car ahead just pulls away because dirty air is such a factor. Like us NASCAR fans and just racing fans in general, we hate air. We hate talking about air. Aerodynamics is not fun to talk about. It's confusing for some people to talk about because it's like you're going like about like 100 miles an hour talking about all these different factors that go into aerodynamics and everything. It confuses some people. And like we don't like talking about it because that should not be what I mean, here's the thing. Air is always going to be a factor in racing. That's obvious. But you want to make sure it's not as much of a factor, especially when it comes to passing people or especially when it comes to going for a race win or whatsoever. Like when you watch these cars race, I mean, especially, oh my God, what racetrack was it recently? Oh yeah, Bristol. At Bristol, that was the best short track race I had seen in a while with the Gen 7 car. You could actually get to someone and pass them. It wasn't like you just hit a bubble of air and you just couldn't get around anybody. I mean, we had like 50 some odd lead changes in that race.
54.
You can actually get to someone's back bumper and pass them. And it was on both ends. You could pass somebody on the bottom. You could pass somebody on the top. You could pass anywhere and everywhere with that car in Bristol. For the first time, I feel like in forever, they actually passed on a short track and do their thing and just race. It was a beautiful sight to see.
Yeah, especially too, like I was saying, it's not like we even have a bad aero package. It's just the fact that we need more horsepower to do this, and just like you said, it makes you look unprofessional if you have your drivers saying that we need more horsepower, and you tell them to go F themselves pretty much. It's almost the equivalent to the NBA saying that they need the goalpost lower or higher, and the NBA says, no, we can't do that. We're going to prioritize entertainment over the actual sporting product.
And that's the problem these days.
It's so ridiculous, especially even as an NBA fan. It makes me mad even as an NBA fan as well. The fact that it's like, it's obviously than racing, but it's like, see, it's the same thing I feel even because the NFL even just announced today that you can't like hip tackle somebody or whatever. You can't tackle somebody by like the freaking waist. It's like you can't even play defense anymore, dude. Especially even in the NBA, it's like you barely even tap somebody, you barely even touch somebody, and when you're for like a layup in the paint and you're trying to play defense, try to block it, you barely even touch somebody. It's a freaking foul.
Yeah, and especially too, it almost reminds us the generation that we kind of live in now. Like, unfortunately, most major sports are kind of going soft. You know what I mean? I mean, compare a incident to 2004 to 2024, and compare the safety that they had in even 2014 compared to 2024. Like, it just feels like at times we've gone soft. Like, don't get me wrong, it is nice that we're taking like as much safety precautions as possible. Like, I want to see these guys go fast and race hard, but at the same time, safety is definitely a number one thing. But at the same time, though, we can't really say NASCAR exactly is one of the safer motorsports out there. I mean, you have like a 20-plus year veteran retiring because in practice at Pocono he gets loose and slams the wall, and that ends Kurt Busch's career. Like, you win all those races, you win a championship, and you pretty much become an all-round legend and an icon that people look up to, and then your career gets ended by what? Somebody that or a car that's just not exactly built for some of these tracks.
Let alone not ready yet.
And it just wasn't right. I mean, the drivers for like Hamlin, Harvick, and so many others. And before I even say it, I'm going to say right now, I like the Gen 7 car a lot. I really do. I like it a lot. I probably do prefer maybe the Gen 6 just a little bit, but I like the Gen 7 a lot. I do like it for sure. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up before I said this before, because I don't want it to come off as me trashing the car by any means. But the drivers, again, this is what I'm talking. This is what my point was a few minutes ago when I brought that up earlier, of drivers in NASCAR being in such a disconnect. The drivers literally pleaded with NASCAR that this car wasn't ready, especially safety wise, that it was not ready yet. But what did NASCAR do? Just like they always do, they don't listen. They rush the car out, and unfortunately,
anyway,
guys like Kurt Busch and even Alex Bowman, to a degree, paid the price for it. And even Noah Gragson last year. We've had several different concussions in the last several years because NASCAR wanted to be stupid again and just not listen to any of the drivers' input. And then you get guys over here that are having concussions and having injuries. And like Brandon just mentioned a minute ago, Kurt Busch's career effectively came to an end because NASCAR wanted to rush out a car that wasn't ready yet, safety-wise. And it ended a career of a veteran who, more than, in my humble opinion, still had a lot left in him. I mean, he literally just won Kansas a few months ago in advance before that incident. He had so much left in him and so much more left to prove. And I feel like he probably, I don't think he would have won another championship, but he definitely still had a good couple more years left of his career to go. And it gets cut short because of just NASCAR stupidity. It's just, it makes no sense. I don't get it, dude. I love the sport. I do. I love it to death. I'm always going to be, I've been a NASCAR fan for as long as I can remember. Ever since I was able to start walking and talking.
We love this.
NASCAR has been my bread and butter.
We wouldn't have this
forever.
Conversation if we didn't care about it. That's
no. And I wouldn't be this passionate about it if I didn't care. Because, like, again, I absolutely love this sport to death. Like, if you had to ask me what race, if you held a gun to my head and you had 3 TV monitors up and you put a NASCAR race, an F1 race, and an IndyCar race, or even like, I don't even know, tell you what, even like a monster truck thing going on, or even you put like a supercross race on, and you ask me what race do I want to watch, I'm watching the NASCAR race first before I watch any of those, as much as I love all the different kinds of motorsports, because NASCAR has just been my bread and butter forever, since I was so young. I'm only 24 years old. I've been watching for a good, at this point, like 2 decades and a half now, since I was about like 3-4 years old. I've been watching forever now. I love the sport so much, but it's small little things like that, though, that just make me upset and make me mad, though, when you look at the disconnect between NASCAR and its teams and even its manufacturers. And it's like they just have so little of, like, not really much of a care, but they just, again, like I said earlier, they just act as if they have all the answers to every little issue. And it's like whatever they say, it feels like for the most part just goes with almost no correlation with the drivers and the teams. I mean, how many times we've seen over the years too, when it comes to like handing out penalties or suspensions, you have some that get favored heavily more than others, i.e. Jeff Gordon over Matt Kenseth.
Yeah, arguably that's become another main issue in NASCAR. You got them playing favorites a little bit too much. Like, remember how in 2020, after like everything came back, and then the beginning half of 2021, where they had that system where it was basically bingo deciding the top 10 qualifying order, and you have races that, look, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Chase Elliott fan, but when you just so happen to coincidentally put him on pole on tracks that he runs really good at, it's kind of suspicious. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it definitely leads into that favoritism thing. And I mean, and like I just mentioned a few minutes ago, like with the penalties thing here, where you have 2 instances where 2 guys wreck somebody intentionally. I mean, obviously, of course, the one on the other end, everybody loved that one. Of course, everybody loved what Matt Kenseth did to Joey Logano. And of course, obviously, I did. I mean, I absolutely loved what he did to Joey Logano that day. But regardless of that, you have Jeff Gordon do the exact same thing to Clint Boyer 3 years in advance, 3 years prior to this at Phoenix, and he gets nothing more than a slap on the wrist, basically. He gets a $100,000 fine and placed on probation until the end of 2012. But then you have Matt Kenseth on the other here, completely take out Joey Logano, and then he gets a 2-race suspension for that. They just straight up suspend him for that. Where's the consistency in this? Like, there's a complete lack of consistency here.
Hey, NASCAR's trying to be so much like the NFL, they even take their inconsistent penalty system, which is another issue, too. Like, I feel like there's points in time where NASCAR almost tries to be a little bit too much like the NFL. You know what I mean?
And I've heard of a saying from...
I don't disagree fully either.
I've heard of a saying from a
But good.
YouTuber. I've heard of a saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. Which do you hate or don't like in that sense?
Oh no. And obviously for a lot of us, we all say we hate the game. It ain't really the players' fault. They're all playing under the same format. I mean, it's like what I brought up beforehand. I'm not like a lot of other people who absolutely just trash on this format, especially like the current day playoff format. A lot of people absolutely despise and trash on the format. And before I say anything, you have every right to feel how it is you feel about the play format or anything that NASCAR does or doesn't do. That's entirely up to you. Obviously, Calvin already knows my thoughts on this already. For the most part, I actually do like this playoff format. I do think, for the most part, it does, for the most part, reward some of the most consistent drivers. I mean, not to mention with the fact that we have stage points now that rewards consistency throughout each race. All the guys that finish inside of the top 10 always get rewarded points. And not to mention, your points will carry over from round to round, especially. We didn't have that when this whole 16-driver playoff format first started in the first 2 years. They have added some things that do make it a lot much more fair. Not to mention, especially if you win the regular season title, you have a ton of... I mean, why do you think Truex Jr. last year survived as long as he did up until the round of 8? It's because he had so many playoff points from stages and race wins. And, of course, winning that regular season title meant so much. So that still was very fair. But at the end of the day, though, the one thing, of course, like I've alluded to a lot before, and I alluded to it in one of our most recent podcasts, the one main thing that I do not like about the current playoff format, though, is the whole win in your end thing. The win in your end thing needs to be dead. It needs to be axed. I cannot stand it. I've hated it for so long. I gave it a chance 2014 and I liked it. But the more I've seen it and the more I've watched of it, got to get rid of the win in your end, man. You got to get rid of it. I'm going to say that till my dying breath. You need to get rid of it.
I understand. Here's the thing. It's like very 50-50 how I feel about the playoff format. I understand that you need to like keep on your toes like every single round. Like for example, Kevin Harvick in 2020, yes, he had like what 10 wins or so,
9
or somewhere close to that. Yeah, 9-10 wins, but going all the way up until the round of 8, he just stopped being consistent, and unfortunately that got him eliminated. He at least deserved to be in the final 4, and you know,
but then Martinsville happened, and he wasn't in the Final Four because of what he decided to do.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe he could have did the wall ride here 2 years earlier, which somebody tweeted that, and he actually responded to it. But I feel like the number one issue with the playoffs is the fact that let's take 2018 for example. Joey Logano wins one race. He does absolutely nothing for the rest of the year. And yeah, he won that Talladega race in April of 2018. And then all the way in like October or November of 2018, like what, several months later, he gets into the Final Four because he completely maneuvers Truex out of the way. And then he just so happens to get a fast car going into Miami, and then he wins the championship despite drivers like Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, and Truex winning most of the races.
And being more consistent throughout 2018.
Oh yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like Chase Elliott, a lot of people will say that it's a Mickey Mouse championship, but the point that I like to bring up is that he didn't win as much races compared to like Hamlin or Harvick, but he was still in the fight. Like in most of the races, he was running in the top 5. He was consistent. He was getting stage points, but at the same time, it's a completely different situation compared to like 2018. However,
2018
did you
was.
guys ever see?
Go ahead.
Did you guys ever see a few days ago? If you look on Richard Petty's Instagram account, he posted a video on when he joins the Dale Jr. Download, where he pointed out the facts that stage racing needs to go, and he said it's a little bit ridiculous that the guy who wins 2 stages will get more points than the guy that actually wins the race. And it doesn't make sense for somebody that finishes in 5th to get more points than the guy who wins the race, which the weird thing is about stages, everybody knew they were only brought in to make the racing more interesting. Like, if you guys were old enough, which you guys definitely are, you guys remember how NASCAR would call like random debris cautions in the last like 20 laps of the race so they could bunch everybody back together?
Or when they
for
call the
entertainment.
caution out and there's literally nothing on the track, which
Hated them.
the phantom
And,
caution, as they call it.
You know what's even funnier too? Those debris cautions mysteriously never were used again.
Wait a
in
minute.
2000 when
Bryce,
stages became a.
Did you mention in episode 3 about the 2015 Auto Club 400 on this topic?
Yes, I did. I think I did bring it up with that topic because, I mean, if you remember correctly with that, they threw about like, I want to say like several phantom debris cautions. I think there was one that did have debris, but there were several cautions that were late in the race that were completely just thrown for quote unquote debris. I remember this vividly because I watched that race that day. I saw no debris on the racetrack at all whatsoever. There was none.
In other words, they threw the caution out for no reason.
It's like what I said in the podcast. I think I might have brought it up to you like outside of the podcast or whatever before then. The main reason NASCAR even did that, and this is just my opinion. I'm not saying it's factual by any means, but this is just my opinion. Kurt Busch got reinstated the week before at Phoenix, right? After those domestic violence allegations and everything that got dropped from him when he came and he was allowed to come back a couple weeks after all that was said and done. In my humble opinion, NASCAR did that to prevent Kurt Busch from winning because the last thing that they wanted, I mean, not to mention, the last thing that you want if you're NASCAR is to have someone that you just reinstated that just had domestic disputes, literally had a whole domestic case, a whole domestic violence dispute case thrown onto them, and they just got rid of all charges and everything. The last thing you want from a PR standpoint is having a guy that had those kind of charges on him win a race. Because then if that gets out to the public eye, for people that know absolutely next to nothing about the sport, that probably more than anything was going to put NASCAR in a very, and I mean a very, ugly situation. So that's why I think that they kept throwing out all those cautions, and that's why Brad Keselowski ended up winning. Because the last thing NASCAR wanted was to be put back in the public eye for the wrong reasons, having a guy that was just clear of domestic violence charges winning a race, just literally just one race and a half after he gets reinstated. And then, of course, the public eye, then that would have just been a nightmare to deal with for them. So I think that's why I did that.
Simply put,
it's shitty. It's really shady, but I don't know.
Simply put, it was in NASCAR's eyes, it was a blessing in disguise that Brad Keselowski won that day.
Pretty much, because I mean, you've seen it. I mean, especially if you're like an NFL fan or an NBA fan like me, you've seen how many times over the years where you have a player that gets like into a domestic dispute or gets, jail time for whatever reason, or they get suspended for whatever reason, and then they only get like a 1 or 2 or even like a 3-game suspension, and then they come right back and then they either like how Ray Rice did when he beat his girlfriend in an elevator back in 2012. This guy comes back and wins a Super Bowl in that same season or whatever. And he only got like a 3 or 4 game suspension. He didn't even get suspended for that long. Like it's stuff like that that's always going to leave said sport in such a very bad place when that happens, because You'll have all these other outside people that know nothing about the sport, or just all these other people, just all this other outside stuff, just stop the sport right in its tracks. I mean, obviously, we all were here. We all remember this. Even just 4 years ago, Larson slipped the N-word. You saw how big of a credibility hit NASCAR took after that.
Oh yeah,
Bryce, we even got on
stopped
the
the
phone and
sport
talked
dead
about
in
it
its
when it
tracks.
happened.
I remember from that incident too. I remember from that incident too, when he posted that like apology video, and of course you have like the political soccer moms and everybody else from the political scene jumping into it and start writing in Larson's reply sections. But as much as I don't really like Bubba Wallace, I remember like a couple days later when he appeared on CNN at the time and said that, hey, I've known Larson for a while now. It's better that he came out and apologized for it, because we live in a society now where one mistake could set you back 10 years. Like, even if you apologize and say you're willing to make changes to your behavior so it never happens again, there's always going to be those people that still want to complain about it. You know what I mean?
And unfortunately, there are still some people right now that are still complaining about it even 4 years later, and they still hold it over his head 4 years later, i.e., Ultimate 23 Dragon.
Oh yeah, and it was definitely salt in the wound for those people, for him to come back and have like a 10-win season. And
it's just it's so crazy.
A lot of people forget too that that bring up the Larson situation. A lot of people forget that he was literally in the NASCAR Drive for Diversity program, and
which he was
at the time,
and NASCAR
at the time
next.
too. That was such a slap in the face to that organization too, to
it
have
really
somebody you're trying to get up the ladder, and that happens. But 4 years later, we like to look back on this incident at times. I even saw a funny meme that obviously F1 Kids is now a thing too, and somebody said, what if we brought this for NASCAR? And then somebody said, F NASCAR Kids channel, trying to explain why Larson didn't race in 2020. And yeah, but it's just unfortunately one of those things that people still like to talk about.
The one
thing, it is unfortunate though, especially because Larson literally learned from all of that, and he's been much better since then. It's like, not to mention, he's gonna be like, and the sad part is too, people actually think he got that right because he said a racial slur. I guess if that was the case, don't you think everybody that would do that?
And especially, what people fail to realize too is that Stewart-Haas was, I don't know if you guys remember this happening at the time, but when Larson was still suspended and he was trying to prepare, this was around the time where everybody starts preparing for the next season, which would be 2021. Remember how everybody thought that when Clint Boyer would leave the 14, Larson being in the 14 would be said and done?
Yeah, that Larson would go.
And Tony Stewart then leaked that Ford themselves turned down the opportunity for Kyle Larson because they thought he was too controversial.
Yeah, that was the thing. Tony Stewart, he tried to get Larson to be on the team for SHR, but Ford said no.
And Hendrick saw this opportunity, and it just so happens the next season, one of the best cars on the grid, and a seat would be open, and they took it.
And look what happened. 10 wins and wins the championship.
Arguably, though, too, because of how even the field is, I arguably think that would have happened if he went to SHR instead. I think it definitely would have.
I'll be honest. Yeah, I feel like, I don't even know. This might just be me, but I'm going to be honest. Him going to Hendrick was easily the best move he could have made. Because, I mean, I don't know. Again, this is just me. As much as I would like to say he probably maybe would have succeeded at SHR, we don't even know for sure, because look at where SHR is right now. Stewart-Haas Racing has not been an actual good team since the 2018 season. I'm talking as a team. They had Harvick carry them for like forever. And like Harvick was the only guy that really, even when he wasn't winning, Harvick still looked like a championship contender every single season, minus last season. But Still, he looked like a top championship contender every single season, while all the rest of his teammates just lagged behind. So can we really sit here and say that Larson probably would have brought them back to Providence or really would have made them look better? I don't really think so. Because he's getting it much more. He's getting so much better out of the cars at Hendrick than I think he ever would have. SH right now, they're in such a bind right now that I don't even know what to say about them. I mean, they've made some strides this year so far. They haven't been horrible, but they're definitely still not where they need to be just yet.
Another thing too, I actually thought I'd mention while we're on here. What's your guys' opinion on the rumor of General Motors replacing Chevrolet with Cadillac?
If that's actually true, I'm not a big fan of that because I'll be honest. I mean, it also stems from the fact that I'm a big Chevy fan. I've been a massive Chevy fan since I was very, very little. Don't get me wrong, it would be cool to see Cadillac come in. Don't get me wrong, it would be cool to see Cadillac come in, but it's just a simple fact. Again, the Chevy's been here since like forever, and getting rid of Chevy for Cadillac would really just feel like a hollow move to me. I don't know, man. I wouldn't be too. I mean, I'd be welcoming to it. I'd give it a chance, but it would definitely be a sour taste in my mouth, though, seeing that.
Yeah, no, who knows? Maybe there'll be a situation where General Motors did what it did in the early 2000s and have all their as many manufacturers as possible battling on the field, like in the 90s too, when they had Pontiac, Chevrolet, Oldsmobile, and Buick battling together.
Yeah,
maybe we could see the return of that, where maybe Chevrolet finds a solution to keeping them on the grid and to their most competitive teams. Like, let's say they decide to go to the Corvette or the Chevy Cruze, which are really the only viable options to the Camaro replacement. But then at the same time, Cadillac jumps in and Cadillac starts to, field their own equipment and stuff like that, because this is a bit weird to pick up on. I know there's only 3 manufacturers, but have you guys noticed there's a lot of Fords in the field?
Yes.
There's
I have noticed that. There are a ton of Fords.
There's 7 Toyotas. 7 Toyotas. There's 15, 16, maybe even 17 Toyotas, and then the rest of the field is Fords. There's a lot of Fords.
I've noticed that. I really have noticed that over the years. It's like Chevy and Ford obviously have the most drivers on their team. They have the most drivers. Toyota has always lagged behind. They've always had the least drivers for sure. They've always the top Toyota teams literally are Gibbs, freaking oh my god, I can't even think off the top of my head all the Toyota teams.
I think it's just Gibbs and
Gosh.
I that are the top teams.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Another thing too, notice how all the back
They have the other ones.
Notice how all the back markers are Fords too as well. So my theory, I think it's because, they offer the back marker teams that bring in their equipment on a U-Haul truck practically. I think they just give those teams a really good deal. I don't know how Toyota exactly does it, because Justin Marks actually revealed when he was making Trackhouse a team, he revealed that Toyota gave him a really good deal. But the only thing was, he said at the end of the day, he's still a huge Chevy person. So, and another thing too, there's literally Legacy Motor Club becoming Toyota too, which it's a bit of a surprise, and it's a bit weird to see Jimmy Johnson in a Toyota. But
Don't remind me.
Chevrolet, they don't really seem to care, because then again, for the last few years, Jimmy Johnson was puttering around different manufacturers. You had him racing Cadillac and IMSA, which is basically just fancier Chevrolet, if you ask me. He was racing Honda.
Pretty much. Honda and IndyCar.
And now he's joined Toyota. For me, it was weirder seeing Jimmy Johnson in a Toyota than it was a Honda. That's saying a lot.
I say the same thing as what you just said,
If you,
Bryce, I bet you the exact same way.
Well, as a Jimmy Johnson fan, as a Jimmy Johnson fan, if you would have told me 10 years ago, back in like 2014, that at the end of his career when he's driving part-time, that he'd be driving a Toyota, I would have told you were batshit crazy.
Especially too.
But here we are.
If you told me in like 2014 or 2015 that Alex Bowman, the guy in the number 23 car that finishes like 22nd every weekend, would be the replacement to Jimmy Johnson, I would have also probably called you crazy.
And look where we are now.
It is so wild thinking about that now. Looking at that, especially looking back at all that, it is so crazy knowing that 2014 was his rookie year driving for BK, the now non-existent BK Racing, and now here he is since 2018. He's been driving for Hendrick ever since. It's so crazy. I mean, he's been in the pipeline. He was in that pipeline for a while,
Well,
but
technically 2016.
it's so crazy, especially with him driving the 48 now. That is true because he was driving part-time. Not to mention that Phoenix race in 2016, I still remember that like it was yesterday. That's one of the few races that absolutely saved his career with him running as well as he did in that race.
He got the pole position.
He almost won that race too.
And he got the pole for that one too. Until it got in the clash in 2017.
The 2017 clash is what I was actually just about to bring up too. You know, at the time, he still had a lot left to learn when he could have easily worked with Kyle Busch to catch up to Joey Logano, and then either one of those guys would have had a shot to win because Logano was a sitting duck. He chose to go side by side with him on a restrictor plate track, which killed both their chances to win, and you have Kyle Busch screaming in his face. But
and Kyle Busch even dubbed it on the radioactive episode. I
remember the rant.
Just can't be so stupid. If you push me to go catch me,
I remember the rant.
You have a shot to win. If you pass me, you eliminate your entire shot to win. You can't be that stupid, said Kyle Busch. I remember that like it was yesterday.
If you were to tell me 3 years ago that you were to go to Chevrolet, I would have probably thought you were crazy too. But then all of a sudden, relationships start going south with Joe Gibbs. Next thing you know, he's at RCR.
And if you ask me, Kyle Busch has matured at RCR these last few years when he joined the team in 2023 last year. He's grown since then. At least that's how I see it.
Absolutely.
It's like he's still fast enough to win at least. Maybe he could try and get his third championship with RCR, and I think he's damn well going to try. I mean, arguably, at some point in time, I feel like in these next handful of years, we're probably going to see Kyle Busch end up in the Final Four with that number 8 car. But
actually,
as of right now, it just...
Brandon?
What's up?
Brandon, can I ask you a question?
What?
Has RCR been good ever since its inception?
Well, RCR has been a successful team. It's just as of right now, and even before Kyle Busch came, like I want to say the brief years of 2014 to 2021. I mean, you have a driver, which is Austin Dillon, who really isn't that good, and likes to also run his mouth too when he finishes 15th every weekend. And he only shows up once in a blue moon at restrictor plate tracks. And there was also the Coke 600 in 2017 that he was just in the right place at the right time with his fuel strategy. And there was also the 2018 Daytona 500, which it sums up what type of driver Austin Dillon is. I mean, you have Almirola, who races you clean the whole way in that final overtime, and then you absolutely hook him going in down the straightaway.
They say he's the next Dale Earnhardt, and I'm over here saying, man, what the hell are you on?
Look, I'm sorry to sound like a boomer and all that, but Austin Dillon should not be driving the 3 car.
Bryce,
and I
probably
think
agree with what Brandon just said.
Oh God.
I don't think he should be driving the 3 car.
And Bryce,
I swear to God. The actual fact that you actually have people that are delusional enough to say that, to think that he's the next Dale Earnhardt. I mean, not even just that. You actually have people sitting here saying that he's underrated. Underrated my ass. What about Austin Dillon screams underrated to you?
Especially,
He is more mediocre and underachieving is what he is.
I want to bring up something about Austin Dillon as well. Like his freaking TV show, that for whatever reason exists, that Life in the Fast Lane shit, and like every single race
Life in the slow lane.
I tried watching 5 minutes of it. It's just unwatchable, if you get what I mean. They try to like portray him as if he's this like race winning driver, like he's contending for wins every single weekend, but then you actually watch NASCAR and you see like he's fighting for like 14th or 13th, or I'm sorry, that's a little bit too high for his standards.
Yeah, that's like a compliment. That you see him fighting, you see him like running 30th at the end of the first stage or something, or he's running like 25th or something.
Facts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I mean, just this past weekend at Cole is like 30th, I think it was.
And it's another thing that brings me on to another driver that I wouldn't say exactly is in the similar situation, or he used to be, but all of a sudden this driver got fast. It's a driver that I don't really like, but Bubba Wallace. Now, to his credit, yes, he's been faster lately. It's just at the same time, you know, he has a massive fan base, but at the end of the day, he's not always pulling for the numbers that he needs to have like that massive fan base. And you have like him taking pictures with like Netflix documentaries and brands like DoorDash that are very infamous too. But, you know, to his credit, yeah, he's improved, but I still just don't think he is a driver that could win a championship. Now, yes, he can win races. We've seen it before.
We've seen it a couple of
but
times.
yeah, no, we've seen that he could win races. It's just he's not a championship driver.
It's like I can't even say I disagree. I mean, obviously, I've always been a big Bubba Wallace fan. I mean, this is coming from a guy who's always been a big Bubba fan. He's not there yet. I do feel like if he continues to get better, and he has been getting better in the last I'd say about what, like at least 2.5 seasons, he's been getting better. But he needs to start, and the way I look at it this way. He needs to start winning more on a consistent basis and also show that he actually has a car capable of like being the guy to beat on a weekly basis before I can actually sit there and say, oh my God, he's like a championship contender. Like he's a playoff contender. He's started to become a playoff contender now, but championship contender, I can't go there just yet. He needs to do a little bit more for me to actually go there yet, because I can't go there just yet. Until he actually starts showing that he has a car, or actually like with several weeks in a row can be the guy to beat or whatever. I can't call him a title contender just yet. It's too early to say.
Too, like he hasn't made the playoffs until 2023. Like, don't get me wrong, those first couple of years when he was with Richard Petty Motorsports, like it kind of does make sense why he didn't make the playoffs, because I mean that team has been struggling since like the early 2000s. And, you know, he comes into 2021. I guess that does kind of make sense on why he missed out, because, you know, it's a new team. They got a bunch of work to do. And then 2022, he was pretty close, but at the same time, that freaking Coke Zero 400 that happened, you know, it happened. So, yeah, missed the playoffs, and then all of a sudden, now in 2023 he gets into the playoffs, but you know he'll still probably contend for like races like Atlanta and Talladega, but yeah, you know what I mean. Talladega's coming up. That's like probably his best shot to win. So,
and Bubba has won there before, albeit rain short.
Hey, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong too. Like he's also, here's my hot take. As much as I don't like him, Bubba Wallace is arguably the guy to look out for in restrictor plate races as of lately. Don't get me wrong. But you know, there's still better drivers.
I can agree with that.
As
There are still a lot of other better drivers and still more to go off of.
oh yeah, like lately, Larson, Byron, and even Alex Bowman have been some of the faster restrictor plate racers, especially too. Michael McDowell was another fast restrictor plate racer too. Definitely
Yeah.
don't count him
You can
out.
never count out Brad Keselowski. You can never count out Keselowski either. Logano, same. As much as I don't like him, Logano, same thing. Chris Buescher's been pretty good on the plates max recently too.
Yeah, especially Chase Elliott too. I wouldn't say it's similar. It's similar to a few other guys. I wouldn't say he's the top restrictor plate driver, but he could definitely contend for it. It just feels like every restrictor plate track Chase Elliott comes into it, it's almost like, do I wanna be in for the fight at the end? Maybe, but
Well,
this
Chase
week we got
Elliott has
Richard
won
coming up.
on a restrictor plate before, reminiscent of when he
Oh
won
yeah,
the
multiple
Spring
times.
race in 2019.
2019, and there was fall Talladega of 2022.
Yep, 2022. Yes.
Yep.
Especially Ryan Blaney is also a good one as well.
And Ryan Blaney, Blaney's got
Him
won
too.
Talladega a couple of times as well. And
I
Daytona
actually
2021 in the
remember.
summer race that year.
Let's go back 1 year actually to spring Talladega of 2023, and I saw Bubba Wallace and Ryan Blaney drafting each other in the last lap, and I'm sorry guys,
Bubba
but
was
come on.
right there, bro. Bubba was right there.
Guys, it's Ryan Blaney and Bubba Wallace on the last lap at Talladega. What else were you guys expecting?
Bubba had it won.
You're not wrong. No, be real. You're not wrong.
But
like, what the hell did you guys expect?
chaos, and that's exactly what happened.
It's like
no, I actually said out loud because I was watching with both my parents. I see, white flag, Bubba Wallace and Ryan Blaney start getting that advantage, and I actually said out loud just mere seconds before it happened. I said, "Oh, these two, they're definitely going to tangle." And then a couple seconds later,
And
I was
sure
right.
enough.
I actually yelled. I yelled at the top of my lungs, "What did I tell you?"
Dude, if only you had a recording of your reactions at that race. If only.
I have to really look back on my camera roll, but I actually recorded my reaction to one of the 2020 Talladega races because there were 3 Talladega races. I think this was the one in June because it was
okay.
It was the one in June because that one got rained out about 9 times in 1 week. Sorry, I'm just exaggerating, but that race where Eric Jones looks like he was in a good position to come to the race win, and Ryan Blaney just completely walls him and gets the win himself. But
I remember that
in the video, my dad was screaming, "Jones is gonna win! Jones is gonna win!" And then Ryan Blaney walls him, and then you can hear my dad yelling, "You piece of shit!"
As an Eric Jones fan, it kind of hurt. It kind of hurt. But at the same time, I was happy for Blaney. At the same time,
I totally get that.
Yeah, especially because Jones arguably just got screwed from his seat at JGR too. He was in a position a couple of years ago where I thought he was going to be the next Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin, and then all of a sudden it's like that one clip from Toy Story where Andy says, "I don't want to play with you anymore." The second they saw
and he just gets shafted.
The second they saw Christopher Bell winning races, "I don't want to play with you anymore."
The infamous Toy Story 2 line.
Toy Story 2 is goated, by the way.
You know what else is Bryce? We had discussion earlier, briefly in the DMs. You know what else is goated, but it's underrated?
Cars.
Yo, Cars is my dog.
You and me both.
Okay.
But
oh my god! I remember I watched it when it first came out in 2006.
You and me both.
I think everybody in the world agrees with this Cars movie ranking. The best one is the first one. The second best is the third one, and coming in last is the second one.
Now, I've had one of my friends
Sorry to
tell me. I've
Yes.
had one of my friends tell me that she put Cars 3. She was actually in one of my podcasts, episode 1 to be exact. Jessica, she put Cars 3 at number 1, Cars 1 at number 2, and Cars 2 at the bottom.
I think everybody can agree with me when I say like there was a lot of potential with the Cars 2 format, but they really screwed it over when they decided to do like the whole spy thing. Like the
You know
World's
why
Grand
they
Prix
did
stuff
that,
was actually
right?
very it was very interesting. It's just, it just wasn't the way to go. To its credit, Cars 3, it wouldn't be as high up if it didn't like showcase all the like nostalgia trips and stuff like that, like
Yes.
using the soundtrack from the first film, bringing back some old characters, and half that movie was kind of a nostalgia trip.
It was, especially the scenes
Dude,
when
I
Lightning McQueen,
hated
especially the Lightning
Cars
McQueen and
too.
Doc Hudson flashbacks. That one hit. That one hits.
Mhm.
It hits like a freaking train, dude. I mean, especially because of just how amazing everything was in Cars 1. And it's like, it really sucks. I mean, we were talking about all this obviously before we even got on, but it's like I obviously we all love the Cars franchise. Guys, is such an underrated gem. Obviously, my ranking is about the same. I feel like it's most people's. I've been thinking about it for a while. Cars 1, I still feel like, I mean, not only because it's nostalgia for me growing up with it all those years ago. I mean, I saw it when it first came out in 2006. I've just loved it ever since then. It's definitely my favorite for sure out of the bunch. But Cars 3, to be honest, really rivaled it, at least for me. It's like right there as far as being like my favorite is concerned because I just love Cars 3 so much. But I do give Cars 1 just a little bit of a slight edge because, again, some of it is nostalgia, but also Cars 1 is just so good. But Cars 1 is just so amazing, but obviously Cars 2 is at the very, very bottom. Now, here's the thing. I will say again, to its credit, Cars 2 does have some good stuff going. I hate Cars 2, but the one thing I can praise Cars 2, if you actually challenge me to say one good thing about Cars 2, the racing scenes in Cars 2 are phenomenal. The racing stuff in Cars 2 is perfect. It's brilliant. Just all the world racing stuff they did for the Grand Prix, perfect. Beautiful. They did those absolutely gorgeous. All the racing scenes are amazing in Cars 2. So I can definitely give that some credit as far as Cars 2 is concerned. Everything else too is crap. And to answer Calvin's question earlier, it's like, you want to know why they did that? It's because of the fact that Mater became really, really popular and all like their Toon shorts and stuff they were doing.
Cars Toon.
With like him and doing all these other crazy adventures and stuff. Yeah, like the Tall Tale stuff. Because all that stuff was so popular and it caught massive wind. And they're like, you know what? Let's give that a shot. People love the Cars Toon Mater stuff and all. Let's put it to an actual movie. And obviously, to nobody's surprise, it did not go over well at all.
And that's why, at least
part of it too is because they wrote Mater. They wrote Mater like an absolute idiot. That's also why they ruined Mater's character. They absolutely like assassinated his character and made him like a complete idiot.
When they had Mater on as the main role, because of again Cars Toon and Mater's Tall Tales was a very popular scene in the late 2000s, from 2008 to 2010. And then when they made Cars 2 for the sequel in 2011, and Mater was the main character, they went with that approach, and it did not go so well. Because when Cars 2, okay, let me ask you a question. All right? Actually, no, let me ask you multiple questions. Cars 1.
Oh, boy.
Lightning McQueen was the main character, right? When Cars 2 came out, or when the Cars 2 trailers came out, y'all expected Lightning McQueen to, again, be the main character, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
And with Cars 1, we had the Piston Cup races. With Cars 2, were y'all expecting Piston Cup races in the sequel, right? Were y'all expecting that?
That is what I was expecting at first. I was expecting more of that.
There was actually a deleted scene.
I was.
Like, there was actually a deleted scene of the opening credits of the Piston Cup race in Cars 2. There's actually a deleted scene that I saw on YouTube a while back.
I know what you're talking about too. The deleted scenes. They actually showed like the sketchboard animation.
That's what that was. That's what I'm referring to.
Like, they were showing like multiple different ideas for what they could have went with for the World's Grand Prix. Originally, they had an idea to make it a 24-hour race on the streets of Paris, or they could have gone with WRC, which arguably would have definitely gotten a bunch. I mean, hey, look at the impact from cars with NASCAR. Got a bunch of Gen Z interested in NASCAR because of cars.
Exactly.
Imagine what it
I'm
would
in
have done.
contact with my friends, and
Imagine,
one of my friends who I keep in contact with
uh,
got into NASCAR because of cars. But go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
imagine what it could have done for WRC, which is an already popular motorsport, which a lot of people forget. Like on the global spectrum, WRC is like in the top 5 for most popular of all time. I mean, there are towns in Europe that live, breathe, and eat WRC, and you know, there are WRC elitists, but they're not like F1 elitists, where F1 elitists think that they're F1, they're the pinnacle of motorsport. Everybody should bow down to them. WRC, the moment they start saying stuff, you can see where they're coming from. Because I do a lot of rally sim racing in my spare time. Even when I keep the car in one piece and finish the stage, it is not easy. Those guys go with a lot. You know what I mean?
In other words, they go all out.
Oh yeah, they're absolute beasts. You know what I mean?
And Bryce, to your Brandon,
What?
let me ask you both a question.
Hmm.
Which would you rewatch over and over again between Cars 1 and Cars 3? And while you're on the subject, explain, Bryce, again, because we had a discussion earlier on the DMs on Instagram, explain as to why the Cars franchise as a whole is underrated.
Crap. Yeah. As far as going between watching Cars 1 or 3 over and over, oh my God, that's a very tough question because I love both a lot. But I'll tell you what, just for the sake of probably just answering the question here, I'm probably gonna watch Cars 1 just a little bit more than Cars. And I absolutely love Cars 3, but I like Cars 1 just a little bit more, mainly because of the fact that when it comes to Cars 1, it literally completely centers and focuses. Whereas for Cars 3, it focuses on Lightning McQueen is already an established character at this point. He's already a 7-time Piston Cup Series champion at this point. And he's kind of at the end of his road, at the end of his career. And then you also throw Cruz Ramirez into it as well. And you have that subplot going on as well that untimely ends the movie with Cruz getting her shot. But with Cars 1, it focuses extremely essentially on Lightning McQueen from start to finish. It focuses on him at first being this young, hotshot rookie racer who's got a lot of talent, but his problem is his hubris and his unwillingness to basically be, how do I put this? To, I guess you could say, hog all the spotlight or just want to always be the number one guy or just, he always wants to live life. Yeah, it's like not to mention, the movie projects him as a complete asshole, and he is. I mean, he is a complete a-hole. He literally, he is very prejudiced against, rusty cars. He's a guy that really doesn't have any friends, really, and he just looks out mainly for himself. I mean, they literally even throw in a nugget there that I think it was during pit stops when he wasn't going in for those pit stops under that caution. That I think that was the third or somewhat crew chief that he had fired or whatever because he likes working alone. But obviously, as we can see before our eyes, him not pitting both of those times, and especially that one pit stop he did where he just went for no tires and obviously gas. You need tires, you idiot. Just got to throw that in there. But that not only did that cost him the race, but it cost him, not to mention, I got to bring it up. The fact that he had an entire whole lap or two lead on the field the way that he did. And he thought that those tires were going to last, and they didn't, and he cost himself, was obviously what made him just such a bigger idiot than he already was. But again, it just goes to show you just where he was at the start of it all, just looking out for himself, just a complete disregard for nobody else's safety but his own. But I mean, if there's another thing that really pencil pushed the McQueen's an asshole, stereotype here is the one I didn't look at this when I was younger, but looking at it now and actually watching it again like multiple times, it's the part where he absolutely just completely just half-asses the repaving the road the first time around. And then like when Mater's on the road and he's doing this thing, and then Sally looks at him and says, "It looks awful." And then here he goes and he says, "Oh, it matches the rest of the town." I'm like, dude, this guy is an asshat. You didn't have to say that.
That was
That's just awful.
for you. That was Lightning McQueen for you.
The fact that he had the nerve to say that speaks volumes about who he was as a character at the beginning of the movie.
That pretty much just sums up Lightning McQueen right there.
Literally.
Oh yeah. Even in the next two movies, there would be parts where he would be a complete asshole. Arguably too, what I wanted to mention, there are some things that I personally would change. Did you guys ever see that one YouTube video where somebody uploaded, like, it wasn't animated, but it was a deleted scene of Cars 3. Like, they had like the voices in, they uploaded it to YouTube. It was where Lightning McQueen got fired the day of the race, and Cruz gets the 95 like right before the race, and McQueen thinks he's out, but then all of a sudden Team Dynaco approaches him, and in the end, Cruz gets her dream of being a racer, and McQueen gets his dream of racing for Dynaco.
I didn't see that.
I never seen that.
I don't think I've seen that.
But in a way, though, in the end, this still kind of plays into effect where they mention how Dynaco bought Rusty's, and in the end, McQueen did get to drive for Dynaco after all. But, it would have been nice, preferably, to see McQueen beat Jackson Storm.
There was actually a deleted scene regarding that he did beat Jackson Storm in Cars 3.
Where he drafts off the back of him, yeah.
Hey, Jackson, Storm's over.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Or it would have been nice to see McQueen pull off that flip that Cruz did. That Cruz and Doc Hudson did in the movie.
Here's a question for you both. Which ending would you rather have? The actual ending with Cruz or the alternate ending with Lightning?
Here's what I would have actually done if I was the writer. I would have kept the idea of McQueen actually getting fired, and then they replace him with Cruz, and Cruz gets a Rusty's paint job and all that. But the night before the race, he signs with Dynaco, and it's all over social media. But especially, too, in the deleted scene, you guys remember, or for those of you that watched it, they put the 51 on the side of him. So imagine, like, McQueen's Dynaco livery from 2006, but instead it has the 51. And here's what I would have done. I would have really thrown a curveball. In the last lap, there's a three-way battle between Cruz, Jackson, and Lightning. Lightning and Jackson would fight so hard that it would let Cruz through, and McQueen would come second. Now, although he did beat Jackson Storm, in the end, Cruz would still win. So McQueen would at least get the credit of beating Storm in the end, and then he would watch a new legacy start to get formed.
Bryce, what about you?
Yeah, that's a really tough one, at least, especially for me. But I'll be real. I do like the ending that we on time did get. It was still a nice, satisfying conclusion. I still did like it. But I'm definitely not opposed to the other ending, too. That other ending I actually really would have liked to have seen, too. Because, yeah, like Brandon just said, pretty much Cruz gets her shot. Well, McQueen also gets a chance to also race, too. And they both get to race, in the same race together without having McQueen just start the race and then have, Cruz finish it. But I just like the ending that we got, but I definitely would have loved to have seen that too, because I think that probably would have been, I guess, dare I say it, maybe 10 times more satisfying, probably. But I'm still fine with what we got, but I definitely would have loved to have seen that, because that would have been pretty cool to see too, with him being able to at least get the chance to actively build that dream of racing for Dynaco too. That'd have been really cool to see.
You guys want to hear my hot take about the Cars franchise? if Jackson Storm were to race against the Cars 2 World Grand Prix McQueen, he wouldn't stand a chance, because the fact that, keep in mind, for the World Grand Prix, they openly admitted that they took off all the Piston Cup regulations off Lightning McQueen. They gave him that spoiler on the back, and that's how we have a NASCAR stock car outrunning a V8 Formula One car, because, no regulations and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
and hey, look, like 10, 11 years ago, it inspires the Garage 56 project, which was pretty badass. I mean, I even had like some of my friends that weren't interested in motorsport whatsoever watching the 24 Hours of Le Mans because they wanted to see the V8 American NASCAR.
And they sure.
Oh my God, guys, it was so satisfying to watch a V8 Camaro overtake like Aston Martins, Porsches, Ferraris, and some of the weaker LMP2 cars. I'm sorry, but that was just satisfying.
Jimmy Johnson and Jensen.
Oh God, yes.
Jimmy
I mean,
Johnson,
it really
Jensen Button with the two
it put us
drivers.
back
Maybe
in
another one,
the
but
public eye limelight again.
I know Jimmy Johnson and Jensen Button
I
would
put them right back in the public eye, man.
Especially odd
I
question.
literally even had friends talking about it that don't even watch racing at all. They were talking to me about it too, and said how cool it was.
Brandon, so yeah, the question.
Especially too. I have a bit of an odd question. Imagine if they did Garage 56 with IndyCar. Who do you guys think would field that team? So keep in mind, it's the regular Dallara IR18. I don't know where they would put the lights or the headlights and stuff like that, but who do you think would be like the best team for that? I'm gonna go.
One thing's more than certain. It's definitely going to be it's either going to be Chip Ganassi or Penske pipeline. That's for sure. Oh, tell you what, I actually got some good drivers I'm going to put in there. Actually, for one, I'm definitely putting Scott Dixon in. Scott Dixon is definitely my first go pick choice. So Scott Dixon's number one. I'm going to probably put Scott Dixon's number one. Joseph Newgarden number two.
God, if you don't say,
I'm not putting Colton Herta there. I like Colton Herta, but I'm not putting him there. I want to put the best of the best in here.
We're beefing now.
I'm not putting Herta in there.
We are beefing now. Nah.
I'm not putting. I'm sorry. I can't put Herta there. I can't put him there.
We're beefing now.
Why?
We're beefing now.
Wait, Bryce, explain yourself.
Dude, listen. Herta's good, but is he better than Elio Castroneves or some of the other ones in there? I don't think so, dude. I don't know, bro.
Brandon?
He's good. I'm not saying Herta's not good. He's good.
Dude,
but
Herta
I just
fought for the championship last season if his team strategy didn't screw him over.
I don't disagree. Trust me, I don't disagree. I really don't. I'm just the only reason I say that is because I just want to put probably the guys that I think would be the absolute best of the best to put there. Because I just feel like if you want to put a team like this together, you can't just have guys that are good but don't come close or do not put it all the way through. Again, Herta had a shot last year and he probably could have had a chance at it and probably maybe should have won it. But I'm going to tell you the truth, though. I'm going to put someone like Elio or maybe even, God, let me see here. Crap. Because I'm putting Scott Dixon there. I'm going to put Joseph Newgarden in there. And I got to put, crap. Good God. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Jesus. That's two so far.
Here's my team. I would put, if it were a Honda
that's
team,
at least two.
I'm putting Palou. I'm going to put Dixon in there, arguably the greatest IndyCar driver of all time. Yes, fight me. And then I'll put Herta. But if it were a Chevrolet team, I'm going to start, because Grosjean's a Chevrolet driver, I think Grosjean should be kept away from that at all costs because we all know him and his history with IndyCar equipment. I'm going to put Newgarden. I'm willing to defend this opinion as well, but I would be willing to have Connor Daly because he's a consistent driver, at least. And for the last spot that would make up if it were a Chevrolet team, I'm thinking Will Power, but I'd at least like to look into the options. I think Scott McLaughlin would be a good one, maybe even Rossi. But at the end of the day, Power would be more consistent than both Rossi and McLaughlin and the others.
And out of the bunch that you
That's what I
mentioned,
was thinking.
Will
Yeah,
Power has
that's what I was
got
gonna
2
put.
championships under his
That's what I was
belt,
gonna put. I don't think
2014 and
that's
2022.
I was doing well this year. I did not only the iRacing 24 Hours of Daytona. I did the 12 Hours of Bathurst, and I just came off of getting P2 in the Sebring 12 Hours.
Not
The
bad.
number one thing, it doesn't really dictate if you're like a blistering fast lap time driver in an endurance race. You just need to know how to survive. That's the thing
Drive
that
to
like a lot of
survive.
people forget about enduros.
Drive to
But
survive is what I
anyway,
say.
it's been an hour 30. I have to eat dinner pretty soon. So I'm just gonna give you the heads up, Calvin.
All right. And I asked you a question and Bryce a question about why the Cars franchise as a whole is underrated. Back on that subject. So Brandon, we're going to start with you.
Arguably because it got a lot of people interested in like regular performance cars and also NASCAR. But the visuals, the soundtrack, the details, the animation for its time, it was just really mind blowing, and that's why it's just so nostalgic. Like I saw a TikTok video. I'm not sure if you've seen it by now, but somebody posted, "What if Cars was animated vertically?" And just waves of nostalgia.
I mean, to me, it's an extremely underrated franchise for I feel like pretty obvious reasons. I mean, not only is it just because of the fact that it got a lot of people, like just a lot of people invested and even interested in racing and all that stuff, too, especially like when it comes to like NASCAR, just racing in general. But for me, especially even as a kid, it had a lot of themes that meant something to me. Like, for example, the main theme of just there's always more to racing than just winning. Not even just that, but McQueen himself learns not only that lesson, but that you don't always have to live life in the fast lane. You can take some time out and slow down a little bit and just enjoy life. I mean, that's part of why he even stays. And that's why we stayed with him in Radiator Springs for so long, because before then, he was mainly just going like just from race to race, just only focusing just on racing and winning. But that time in Radiator Springs changed him as a person. He was able to actually slow down a little bit and enjoy a lot of the small things that life has to offer. Being embracing, having, good friends, good people around you, helping out a small town community that was on like the closing, like the road to erasure. Like literally Cars, literally there with Radiator Springs, that basically is representation of the erasure of small town America. Like that's a very dark theme that a lot of people don't bring up. It literally touches on the erasure of small town America, and McQueen coming in and helping out near the end of the movie, bring those shops and bring the entire Radiator Springs area back to Providence again is one of the main catalysts as for why those kind of themes mean so much. Like that's another theme that really means a lot too. But just McQueen just learns that, hey, you don't always have to be a one-man show. You don't always have to be, just by yourself. He was able to slow down and able to enjoy life. And not to mention, he won himself a best friend in the process with Mater and built himself a really stable and healthy relationship with Sally in the end. So it's like he learned so much and he gained so much from just hanging out in Radiator Springs for so long that when it was time for him to leave, when Doc ended up calling everybody to go and, bring him along to the Speedway, he was so attached to everybody that he couldn't even leave. Initially, from going from wanting to leave, wanting absolutely nothing to do with everything in Radiator Springs and all of its people, he formed such a close bond and loving relationship with all of them. Obviously, of course, Mater and Sally being the closest, but just again, just stuff like that in general meant something to me. And just also, of course, the racing and just racing aspect of it all as well. It's just, especially Cars. That's why Cars 1 is so good, dude. It touches on all these different beats that most people would miss. And it just tells them in such an amazing and just such a compelling way. And even Cars 3 does that too a little bit. That sometimes, even if you're at the end of your road, sometimes you always have a chance to, I guess, how should I put this? Like, even though McQueen, like, did his best and at the end of it all, I mean, we kind of knew he more than likely probably wasn't going to beat Storm. Probably not, because of how just at the end of his road he was. But he also gave Cruz a chance. I mean, and Cruz wanted to be a racer forever, and he ended up giving her a chance, and she took it and ran with it. But he also got the chance to win the race too, because I mean, again, he started the race and ended up finishing it. But aside from that little tangent, though, the Cars franchise is so underrated because of all those things I just mentioned a minute ago, and it's just got so many amazing themes that I think a lot of people people think it's goofy, people think it's silly, but it's got a lot. Again, it's got a lot of amazing themes and a lot of just amazing messages, little messages that meant so much to someone like me and like just all three of us here, and even just a lot of other people, both as a kid and even right now as an adult. It's like, tell you the truth, it's like how I picture a lot of Pixar's early works from back in the day. I mean, especially if you're like me and you grew up with Disney and Pixar, especially Pixar, a lot of their early movies really centered around like very dark and cynical things. They were not afraid to portray our world as dark and unforgiving with a lot of lighthearted and, amazing themes and characters and all that other good stuff. But they were never afraid to actually show a little bit of the darkness of the world itself and all that. And they had a lot of amazing themes that not only did tug at your strings, but they really taught you some amazing life lessons too that you could take, in the future. Even if it went over your head as a child, you can watch these movies as an adult and look at these themes and actually learn something from them. So that's just why I think Cars is so underrated, because it has a lot of themes and it tells its story in a way that it's compelling enough for everybody of all ages to not only understand it and resonate with it, but anybody can enjoy that kind of a movie. Anybody can enjoy, especially Cars 1 and even 3, but especially Cars 1. Anybody can watch the movie from any kind of age and get so much level of enjoyment out of it and even recognize the themes. And especially if you're our age now, those themes mean so much more now than they did for us when we were much younger. Well, that's just me.
And especially when Doc said, "You got a lot of stuff, kid." In the end.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Again, that's another one that meant so much to me as well. Especially now, it's like Doc never got a chance to show what it is he had, and he still had so much left in him, but never got a chance to show it. McQueen did, and he took it.
But then years later, McQueen would also have a crash, and we've seen Cars 3 and we know what happened. Obviously, if y'all haven't seen it and you also listen to this podcast, we're sorry that you basically just listen to spoilers here for those who have not seen Cars 3 or Cars 1.
It's been like what 8 years since it's been in theaters. I'd really be surprised if some of you have not seen it. It has been like out for about like 3 years now, or 7, 8 years
at least.
With Cars 3, with Cars 1, it's been out for 17, 18 years.
Anyway.
2006.
All right. Well, all right. It's been about hour 30. I gotta eat dinner. I say we wrap it up here.
Well, you wrap it up here, Brandon. Bryce and I, we still have a lot of things to talk about. So.
All right. Well, I gotta get going before I get hit with the shoe. So.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. So you guys keep going. Bryce and I will keep it going.
I'll see it.
See you, Brandon.
Yeah. Catch you later, bud.
And then there were 2.
Yep. Back to the original 2.
There was one thing it's not just the movies regarding the Cars franchise, but also the video games too.
Oh yeah. I never played any of the other Cars games in the franchise. Well, obviously outside Cars International. I played that on the DS years ago and absolutely loved playing that. That was an amazing game.
And on the Wii.
I haven't touched it in a long time, but I did play that. I got it for my birthday actually many, many years ago. So that was cool.
You also played the Wii version.
But obviously, if you were to ask me what is the best Cars game, of course, obviously Cars 1. I've been playing that since I think the year that came out as well in 2006, and the Cars 1 movie tie-in game is just so good. It's an absolute childhood gem of mine. I played that game nonstop. Any chance I got, I played it.
You and me both. You said you got that game Christmas 2006?
I want to say yes. I believe so. one I can remember. I mean, it's a little hazy, but I do think I got it for Christmas in 2006, I believe.
You played Cars International as well for both the DS and the Wii.
Oh yeah,
And there's
but
also
obviously, Cars One is just so good.
there's also Cars 2 and Cars 3 Driven to Win, and there's also Cars Toon. Yes, believe it or not, there's actually a video game of Cars Toon made as Tall Tales. Believe it or not. There's also Cars Racerama. I don't know if you've played those, but those are among those as
I
well.
have never played any of those.
You haven't?
No, I have not touched those.
Well, for Cars 2, I can kind of see why, since Cars 2 is the movie itself is not that good, according to many people.
Like, it's like, dude, like, and it really sucks because to a degree, I really wish I liked Cars 2, but dude, I hate Cars 2. I hate this movie.
Now,
I
was
hate
your
it so much.
opinion,
It's one of my least favorite Pixar movies of all. I absolutely hate Cars 2.
did you hate Cars 2 even in theaters when it came out, or did you have a different opinion on it?
I never saw it. Funny enough, I never saw it in theaters. The first time I actually even watched the movie, I forget when I even first watched the movie, but I never did see it in theaters though.
Hmm. Well, I did though, but when you saw it for the first time, did you hate it even the first time you watched it, or was it a different opinion?
It probably might have been a different opinion back then. I can't say for certain because I completely forget. But especially though watching it now, I absolutely hate this movie. Like just this movie sucks. It doesn't piss. Here's the thing though, it does not piss me, especially as far as Pixar movies is concerned. This movie does not make me as mad as Toy Story 4 does, but this movie is still bad. This movie still sucks. Like I said earlier, giving it praise, all the racing stuff in Cars 2 is phenomenal. They did an amazing job with the set designs and all the different locations that they raced on in Cars 2. They did such an amazing job with that stuff. All the racing stuff was handled perfectly. It still keeps the same kind of suspense as it did in the previous Cars movie and all that too. Not as good, but good enough on its own right to stand out. But everything else, all the spy thriller stuff, though, just did not do it for me, and it still doesn't do it for me at all. And not to mention, Axelrod's plan of using All in All and everything is just so stupid. Like everything about All in All is so dumb. All of it is stupid. All of it makes no sense. All of it.
In other words, you're saying the plot, there's more. Cars 2 is extremely confusing, but yet there's a lot of taken because there's more than one plot. They can't stick with one plot. You have to try to figure out all these things happening
That's
at
what I
once
hate
to
about
figure
it.
out the pieces to the puzzle.
And that's what I don't like about it too. It feels like it's a bunch of different movies constantly interrupting each other. Like so much is happening that it literally like all these different subplots and all these different themes, all these different plots are all fighting for the screen at the same time. It's another one of those movies that just relies on throwing as much at the audience as possible, and I hate that.
Be grateful that you didn't play the video game of Cars 2 then, in that sense, given how much of
I'm so glad I
the
never
movie
did.
itself. What?
I'm so glad I never did. Especially because the movie is so trash.
And then Cars 3 came out, definitely better than the second one.
And then thank God, Cars 3 did get my love again. I mean, it took longer than it needed to for another Cars movie to come out, but of course, I feel like they were definitely very, very lenient to do so after the bad reception that Cars 2 had gotten, rightfully so, because of how bad it sucked. But then they brought Cars 3 out, and thank God, the holiest of the grail, that Cars 3 came out, and it was so not only so much better than Cars 2 was, but it to a degree rivaled Cars 1 a little bit, at least a little bit.
Now, let me ask you another question. We mentioned how Cars, the franchise, is underrated. We say this because I see people mentioning all these when Disney is brought up and when Disney and Pixar is brought up. You know what I see from people? A Bug's Life, Toy Story,
What?
especially Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Frozen, Inside Out, but yet not a single person, at least from what I've seen, mentions the Cars franchise. That's how you know the series
And it
is
really
to a
does.
degree underrated because not that many people mention it. It's not brought up as much as the other Disney movies, like again, like I mentioned before, the Toy Story franchise, A Bug's Life, Inside Out, Frozen, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, all these other Disney movies and Pixar to an extent with A Bug's Life, like I said moments ago. There's also Monsters Inc. Again, all those movies are mentioned, but yet Cars in that sense is rarely mentioned, at least from what I've seen and the people that I've talked to.
It really is. It really does suck too, because again, like I just said, Cars is just such an amazing franchise. It really is. Of course, obviously, yes, Toy Story, The Incredibles, etc. So many, like all these, Finding Nemo, like all these different other, franchises, and even just like, sequels are definitely, I feel like, obviously, definitely better than Cars for sure. I mean, I still love Incredibles 1. Incredibles 2 was good, but Incredibles 1 is still better. Finding Nemo was always a classic as well. Finding Dory was still pretty good. And obviously, you already know my absolute love for Toy Story. The first three Toy Story films are just beautiful. Just the first three Toy Story films are nothing short of some of my favorite movies, some of my favorite animated movies of all time. They've been some of my favorites since I was a little kid, and that's never going away. Wall-E is another really good one. Ratatouille is another really good one.
You meant Up. That's another
Like
one
those are
too.
just some very amazing and classic movies. Up is pretty good too. It's not my favorite by any means, but it is still a good movie. It is still pretty good. It's solid. It's not my favorite, but it is solid though. It is very solid.
Tangled as well.
Trying to think of what other ones have come out. Obviously, Monsters Inc. is pretty good. That's another pretty solid Disney Pixar film that came out. Good gosh, I'm trying to think some of the other ones I've seen before.
Tangled?
That's a good Disney movie. That's another good one. I don't like Frozen. I've never cared for Frozen at all. Neither Frozen 1 or Frozen 2. I don't like or care for Frozen. I don't care. I'm sorry, but I don't care. Sorry, Frozen fans, but
you'd be surprised how overrated Frozen is from what I've seen. You'd be surprised.
Dude, ever since 2015 when that movie came out, oh my freaking God. And people have been Let It Go since 2013, and I hated it. I hated it then. I still hate it. I hate that song. I'm not letting it go, letting it loose, foot loose. Mind your business. I don't like Frozen.
Those Frozen fans,
and I hate that song.
They crave and praise that song so much. It's not even funny. Even though I'm trying not to laugh, but it's still.
Dude, it's so bad. That they actually did you remember the Frozen world is in Kingdom Hearts 3, right?
I think you mentioned that to me when
literally when you came out. When you play Kingdom Hearts 3, there is an entire in Kingdom Hearts 3, when you go to Arendelle, when you go to that world, there is an entire for obviously for any Kingdom Hearts fans out there, you know this. If there aren't any watching this podcast at all. You go to the Frozen world, excuse me, and there's an entire cutscene that plays the entire song of Let It Go.
Dude, did you cover your ears?
And I hated it. I didn't, but I definitely wanted to. I sat there and listened to the pain. I sat through the pain and listened to it because I didn't want to miss any vital, context from the story. So I sat there and listened to it, even though I didn't want to.
But you did anyway. Was it worth it?
I still did it anyway. It was worth it, but I hated it.
Well, the question is, did you beat the whole thing, period? I'm talking about KH3 as a whole.
Well, of course I did. I literally bought the game on opening day, and I completed less than a good 2 to 3 days. I binged that game. There was no way I wasn't going to.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah, I wasn't joking when I said I was going to binge that game when I played KH3. I mean, of course, I took breaks in between. Not that I didn't take any breaks in between. I mean, you'd be crazy if you don't take any breaks in between. But in those several days that I had that game for the first couple of days, I binged that game and I completed the story in less than a few days.
Wasn't there a Toy Story involved? Wasn't there a Toy Story involved? Like, was there a Toy Story world?
Yes, there was a Toy Story world involved. Yes.
Bringing that up, Which do you prefer? The Cars franchise or the Toy Story franchise?
That's a really
I got you with another one, didn't
that's
I?
definitely a big nugget. Oh, because you really got to hit me there. Those obviously are two of my biggest childhood franchises, especially as far as Disney and Pixar is concerned. Those are two of my obvious absolute favorites of the Disney Pixar genre. Jeez. Don't get me wrong. Trust me, I love Cars to death. I do. I absolutely love Cars to death. But just for the sake of the fact that, at least as far as a trilogy is concerned, don't not counting Toy Story 4. Toy Story 4 is an absolute just steaming hot pile of fucking garbage. But throwing Toy Story 4 out of the picture for a minute, if we're gonna go by a trilogy, the Toy Story franchise is just a much better trilogy to me. It's been my absolute favorite, probably out of the Disney Pixar catalog, probably forever. I just love Toy Story so much. The Toy Story franchise is just phenomenal, dude. I just absolutely love I love everything about the first three films so much. Like Toy Story has always been near and dear to my heart since I could walk and talk. I absolutely have loved Toy Story to death forever. So I'm gonna be real. As much car as I love, so it's just because of me being a NASCAR fan, even just being just a motorsports in general. I think Toy Story the Edge because that's what I watched first, and I fell in love with that instantly the second I watched the first film onward. So I'm gonna have to give the edge to Toy Story on this one, but that doesn't mean that the Cars franchise still doesn't get the exact same amount of love and attention from because the Cars franchise, like I said earlier when I was alluding to why I feel it's underrated, all those themes and everything I mentioned earlier, all of those things, especially even more now in 2024, still mean so much to me. And it just with Cars 1 and how amazing of a movie that is, it just literally just Cars 1, especially, and even Cars 3, those movies are just phenomenal. They're just amazing movies. They're not only just good racing movies, but they also really show, especially with Cars 1, it really delves into a lot of different themes and I mean a lot of different emotional beats that really, really can speak to somebody from the heart. And it really just resonated with me, both as a kid and especially even now. I mean, like, and the thing that I see a lot of people when they talked about Cars 1, a big nitpick that I've seen a lot of people pick at with Cars 1 is that the movie spends a lot of time in Radiator Springs and not a lot of time on the racetrack. But there's a reason why it does that. I mean, does it make runtime probably a little bit bloated? Maybe. That's debatable. I feel like that's debatable. It depends on who you ask. But to me, it makes sense for more than half of the movie to be centered in Radiator Springs because it was what was needed to really like send Lightning McQueen on his character journey. Like it was needed for Lightning's character growth because if he just would have kept racing, I don't think the story would have gelled all that well. And McQueen's character growth would have been non-existent had he not, accidentally shown up in Radiator Springs. The entirety of him being in Radiator Springs is what made him become a much better person and a much better character than he was when we first saw him at the start of the movie. So him being in Radiator Springs is part of what makes the movie's ending and what makes everything that happens in the second half, like mainly in like a third act, all come full circle, and it makes everything hit much harder while he's there after everything that he had been through and after everything that he had done while in Radiator Springs. It changed him as a person. It made him better as a person, not just as a racer, but just as a person, basically as a car. I can't say human because he's a race car, but still, just as a car, it made him so much better than where he was at the beginning of the film. So I understand some people's nitpicks with that. I understand why some people would feel like it probably bloats the runtime just a little bit, but that's just my opinion. Without him being in Radiator Springs, you don't see the character growth that you ended up untimely seeing with him just still doing the same regular racing shtick throughout the whole, movie.
What you're saying
again,
is,
that's just my opinion.
What
that's
you're
just how I
saying
feel
is
about
with
it.
the racing, if you keep seeing that, nothing but racing, you're saying that will get or might get repetitive.
it's going to get stale. Yeah, that's my main point. It's going to get stale, and then you're going to see any growth in McQueen at all. He's just going to continue to be the same, just bullish character. He's going to just continue to be the exact same egotistical guy that he was at the beginning. You're not going to see any kind of growth from him. And not to mention, you wouldn't have seen any of the other characters either. So him being in Radiator Springs also got a chance to see several different characters and their personalities and everything else. So, yeah. And I mean, not to mention, too, Chick Hicks is essentially who McQueen would have ended up being had it not been for his emotional journey through Radiator Springs. Because, of course, we have, even in Cars 3, we have seen that Chick Hicks is still the exact same car that he was in Cars 1. He didn't change in the slightest. He is still the same person he was in the first movie. Still.
Just goes to show who's changed and who hasn't changed.
Like, McQueen went on a humbling journey, whereas obviously Chick Hicks, on the other hand, had no such correlation with any of that. He had no such journey whatsoever. And of course, why would he? I mean, he obviously wouldn't at all whatsoever. But I rest my case. I rest my point. McQueen going on that journey changed him as a driver and as a person. And untimely, yeah, he gave up the Piston Cup in the end, but he did it for a much better cause. When Chick dumps the King and sends him to that terrifying rollover, McQueen gives up the cup. Because like how Doc had just said, it's just an empty cup, really. I mean, it's like, that's another big theme to touch on, too. McQueen, the reason why he even gives it up is because he got that flashback to Doc not being able to finish his career and not being able to finish his last race and just not being able to finish the way he wanted to. And he didn't want people to watch and see the King not be able to finish his last race. Because that obviously was Richard Petty, that was the King's, that was Strip Weather's last race of his career, of his full-time career. And him not being able to finish that because he gets taken out like that would have been just the worst way for him to go out. So McQueen, after learning humility, basically, stops on the brakes, lets Chick Hicks win, and humbly takes third place and helps the King finish the race. That took a lot of humility, and it took that emotional journey that McQueen went on to have that all come full circle. And obviously that powerful conversation he had with Doc way before then, to realize all of that and just to be able to allow Strip to be able to have that himself. Doc didn't get to have that, but the King did, with some help from McQueen in the process. So that all comes full circle too.
And it goes to show how much Lightning McQueen, to your point, has grown and matured.
Literally, he grew, especially when he was still even a rookie at that point. He grew and matured so much and really showed, again, just a lot of humility and a lot of he became much more humbler and, much more. I mean, not to mention, especially the beginning of the movie when it came to especially when it comes to the racing world and how you have to be very loyal to your sponsor, especially when you have a loyal sponsor that's going to back you an entire season or more. Especially this movie obviously came out at a time where a lot of drivers had one sponsor that sponsored them an entire season. McQueen was absolutely appalled by having Rusty's sponsor him, and he had to do all, of course, remember that scene where he had to do his sponsor plug and everything, where he had to make his personal appearance, and he absolutely dreaded, didn't want to do any of that.
Yes.
How much he loathed having all the sponsorship deals and all the other stuff that came with having a primary sponsor.
Are you talking about that scene when he went to the tent with all these other cars that are rusty? Like literally rusty?
Yeah.
Yes, I know that scene.
Yeah, and how prejudiced he was towards them, and also just how much he hated. You could tell how much he absolutely just hated working with his spokespeople or whatever. How much he absolutely just didn't like them. But then it came around full circle later when Tex gave him that offer. Hey, you can race for Dynaco or whatnot. And then he gave him the choice, but then he was like, you know what?
He declined it.
Those rusty gave him a big break. I'm going to stick with them. Character growth.
But then Cars 3 happened when Dynaco bought Rusty's.
Yeah.
So eventually Lightning did.
And they signed Cruz Ramirez to be their driver.
And technically McQueen did race for Team Dynaco because, again, at the end of Cars 3, Dynaco did buy Rusty's. at the end of Cars 3. Again,
That is true.
if someone out there who's listening to this podcast has not seen all 3 of the Cars movies, we're basically just spoiling it here for those who haven't seen the Cars.
Unfortunately.
So
I do hate it for those people that haven't seen those movies. If you haven't seen them, I mean, like, just disregarding Cars 2. If you haven't seen Cars 1 and 3, watch them.
Please do. We recommend it. Even though we spoiled the crap out of it. Still, though.
Unfortunately.
Give it a watch. But, dude, you say you prefer Toy Story over Cars.
Yep.
Whoa. If you ask me, which of the 2 I prefer? Cars.
Understandable. I totally understand that. I mean, I get it. I do get it. It's just a simple fact for me that Toy Story it was one of the few franchises I grew up with, like, at a very young age, very early on, before Cars came out. I was introduced to Toy Story very early on, and I just instantly fell in love with it. I mean, Woody became my absolute eccentric favorite character, Buzz and Jesse right behind. But it's just the themes and everything in Toy Story, and just everything that Toy Story tackled, just everything that Toy Story is to me is just peak. It's just amazing. Everything about Toy Story, I just love it. I just love Toy Story so much. Just everything about Toy Story is just amazing as a franchise. Again, disregarding the 4th and the 5th films, like the eventual 5th one that's coming out very soon.
I was about to say, the 5th one's not even
the first
out
3
yet.
are just top tier. It's not out yet, but it's looking like that's going to be in the works, and it's looking like that's going to come out eventually. At some point.
Dude, did you say that Toy Story 4 is dead to you?
Dude, Toy Story 4 is a film that makes me legitimately angry. It was a hopeless movie from day one that shouldn't have been made under any circumstances. At all.
You said since day one. God damn.
I hate this movie. It is probably my most disliked Disney Pixar film that I have ever seen in a long time, besides Cars 2.
I was about to say,
besides Cars 2 and a few other ones.
God damn.
I hate it. I hate this movie.
Which do you hate more?
I hate Toy Story 4 more than I hate Cars 2. Because, to tell you the truth, as much as Cars was a bad movie, you want to know what Cars 2 doesn't do? It doesn't ruin Mater and McQueen's friendship. It doesn't assassinate their characters to a point where they're absolutely unrecognizable. And not to mention, late in the movie, when all the chips are down, at least everyone else in that movie, everyone actually has a role to play, and everyone's able to actually do something in that movie. Everyone is given something to do in that movie, at least, especially in the climax. Whereas in Toy Story 4, only ones that get any type of massive screen time is Woody and Buzz, your essential first 2 characters, and then everyone else from Jesse on backwards is stuck in a RV the entire movie with no correlation, and they shove all these other new characters in front of your face that no one cares about with a bunch of basically celebrity voices who are only there for their namesake just because they couldn't handle it. Just because of the simple fact that they just relied on that. Any faith in their script, because the script was trash. Yeah, you can tell. I hate this movie. I absolutely hate this movie. And not to mention, it does so much damage to the world of Toy Story, and it does essential damage to Woody, Buzz, and Jesse as characters.
Not to mention,
it does damage to Jesse first by hyperventilating in a closet. It makes Buzz an absolute idiot. And then later on, they keep Woody's character intact until the last 5 minutes of the movie.
I was about to say, the ending, though. The ending is what did it for me. Not in a good way.
The ending for me is, even when I was watching it in theaters, I could not believe what I was watching. I literally almost felt like I had my jaw drop to the floor. The ending is literally the biggest kick to the teeth I think I have ever had out of watching an animated movie in a long time.
For a minute,
it makes my blood boil 5 years later.
For a minute, I thought you were going to say the worst period.
It's not the worst period, but it's definitely one of the absolute worst. You are seriously going to sit here I know this is, I'm sorry, everyone. I know this is like, we're way off topic now, and this is an absolute tangent, but seriously, I just have to get this off my chest. You are really going to sit here and tell me that Woody, literally, he has all these amazing people here. You're telling me that he is going to leave, literally, Ham, literally, he's going to leave Jesse, Slinky, Ham, the potato heads, and all Rex and all his other toys, including Jesse and including his best friend Buzz Lightyear. You are seriously going to tell me that he's going to leave them all behind and pursue a life with Bo Peep instead? What the are you kidding me? Like, are you yanking my chain right now?
You know what Woody could have done? Ask Bo Peep to come along.
That's my point. They should have just done that. But no, they have him completely abandon all of his friends and his kid to be with Bo Peep instead.
Woody, you remember this in the beginning of Toy Story 3? Woody, or Jesse pointed out what Woody was trying to say, be there for Andy. Well, at the end of Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 4, it was now with Andy at college, it was now being there for Bonnie. I guess Woody scrapped that at the last minute.
He just scrapped all of it. I mean, it literally is such a slap in the face because of the simple fact that Woody literally in this movie literally talks, literally when they're having an argument, when they're having the stupid third act, there's a stupid second act breakup scene where Bo tells Woody, you need Bonnie and you shouldn't be just holding on to someone you're still clinging to. Guess what he says? It's called loyalty. Something a lost toy wouldn't understand.
I remember that.
He says all of that. And not to mention stays loyal to Bonnie the entire movie. The whole movie. He's over here literally trying to get Forky back to Bonnie because of how much he means to her. As much as Forky's a stupid plot device in its own right. But still, because that means so much to her and everything else. And the whole movie is literally based upon the whole premise that Woody is in such a funk here because he hasn't been playing with Bonnie in literally 3 days. But literally, he's been playing with Bonnie almost all of his life up to this point when he's gotten there. And he only hadn't been playing with in 3 some odd days. And now he's in such a freaking funk over all of it now. And he's literally just, he's having a midlife crisis and is falling apart over the whole thing. And all of this culminates to where he ends up at the end of this movie. And not to mention, all of that makes no sense because Bonnie, there's a little shot. There's a montage, literally a shot in a montage during the movie where Bonnie literally plays with him.
Toy Story 4 could have been
like literally. He abandons her. He abandons her and everyone else when she literally played with him in this movie.
Dude, just talking about Toy Story 4 is grinding your gears. I can tell.
This movie makes me angry. This movie makes me so mad. And it makes me mad, especially because of the fact that Woody is my favorite character and his loyalty. Andy says it perfectly at the end of Toy Story 3 that the thing that makes Woody special is that he would never give up on you, ever. He'll be there for you no matter what. And it's shown in all 3 movies.
Except for Toy Story 4.
Except for 4 in those last 5 minutes. But in those first 3 movies, it is shown over and over and over again that he stands not only by his kid through thick and thin, but he stands by his friends through thick and thin because that's how loyal he is and that's how much of a good heart that he has. And literally in the final 5 minutes of Toy Story 4, all of that gets thrown out the window just so we can stay with someone that literally spent more than half of the movie condescendingly patronizing him and treating him like absolute dog shit and literally putting her own needs above his own every single time. Every time.
It makes you wonder what the hell was going through Woody's head in that short period of time in the final 5 minutes of Toy Story 4.
Everything about Toy Story 4 is ridiculous. I swear on it.
And with Toy Story 5 coming out, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go.
I am just
how it's
hoping.
Going to be. But I'm just hoping that it's better than the fourth one. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm just hoping that we can repair somewhat the damage that Toy Story 4 has dealt. Because
A
Toy
lot of
Story
damage,
4
you
has
mean.
dealt so much damage to this franchise. Yes. It's dealt so much damage to this franchise that it's beyond saving at this point, unless they can really scrap together a really, really good story. But I don't have any faith in them doing that, to be honest.
Oh, you don't?
And I say that because of the track record that Disney and Pixar have been on lately, with absolutely just assassinating all of their beloved characters recently. They've made pretty much almost all of their beloved characters from every single classic movie that Pixar's produced, and they've made almost every single classic character that everyone loves, and they've turned them into a bunch of laughing stocks.
Such as?
They're almost unrecognizable. You watch some of these movies and you're like, who are these people? Like what I just said with Toy Story 4. Buzz is literally turned into an absolute moron when he is arguably the smartest character in Toy Story altogether.
Yeah, in the fourth one, it's the opposite.
Literally, he oh my God. He's so dumb in Toy Story 4, he doesn't understand the concept of a conscience. He doesn't I wish I was joking. He doesn't understand the concept of a conscience and having an inner voice. And like literally, to hammer it even more home, one of the things that also infuriated me during the movie too was after the second breakup scene, the second act breakup, when Woody's about to go and find Forky and stage literally be a one-man cowboy army and stage an entire basically go after Forky and him against Annabelle. Buzz literally abandons him and runs back to the RV. He doesn't even care at all. He just literally, this is what he does. He literally just pushes the buttons on his chest. They go home, and so he does. And it's because the writers wanted to continue the dumbass joke.
It just goes to show the writers do not care. Especially because with Toy Story 5 coming out, you know they're doing this because of cash grab. That's all it is.
And they thought it would be a funny joke because they thought it would be a nice little funny ha-ha just to throw in there for joke when it literally was nothing more than insulting.
In other words,
Buzz is not stupid. He is incredibly intelligent, and there are so many different parts throughout the Toy Story universe that literally is proven so.
Dude, I had one of my friends tell me a while back that the Toy Story franchise should have ended with the third one, period.
And they're spot on. It was supposed to stop there, but they wouldn't let the franchise stop there. It makes no sense. It was supposed to stop there, but they wouldn't let the franchise stop there.
It sounds like you're saying that with gritted teeth.
Yes, because it makes me so angry. It makes me so mad because Toy Story 3 has, in my opinion, the best ending that they could have put together for the trilogy right then and there. It didn't need another movie to completely invalidate that ending because now that ending is invalidated now. That ending now means nothing. That ending now has been ruined. That ending has been completely ruined by that movie.
Well, if you take out the fourth one and the upcoming fifth one, Toy Story 3, the Toy Story franchise.
If you take out Toy Story 4 and 5, it's right there. Everything is right there. If you just take out 4 and 5, that's upcoming, Toy Story 3 is the perfect ending to the Toy Story trilogy. It's beautiful. It's an absolutely just beautiful ending that bookends the entire franchise in the best way possible.
But in the eyes of Disney and Pixar, they didn't see that. And look what's happened. And look,
they gotta milk it. They gotta milk it because of how popular these characters are. They just gotta milk it.
Well, you said it yourself. Toy Story 4 is dead to you. So let's just say Toy Story 3, that pretty much just ended the franchise right then and there. And let's pretend Toy Story 4 doesn't exist. And let's pretend it never exists.
It doesn't exist at all to me. It's like, and it sucks because I even would love to see an Incredibles 3. But because of the way Disney and Pixar's track record is, I don't even know if I'd even want that anymore.
What, a third Incredibles?
Yes, and I did like Incredibles 2. The only thing about Incredibles 2 that I didn't like was the villain. I hated the way they portrayed the Screenslaver. It sucks because the Screenslaver was done really, really well just in the very beginning. but the way they handled it was just, oh my God. Hold that thought. I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab something really, really quick, and I should be right back in less than a minute or so.
All right.
Quick break, everyone. Be right back in less than a minute.
Starting now.
All right. I am back now.
Welcome back. Grab a snack.
So now we're back. I grabbed some dinner. Chicken tenders and tater tots.
Tater tots? For a minute, I thought you said Pop-Tarts.
Yep. No, not Pop. No way. How do you Pop-Tarts with chicken tenders?
Wait, do you even eat Pop-Tarts?
Not really. I haven't eaten a. Funny enough, I haven't eaten a Pop-Tart in a long time.
You and me,
bro. I haven't had I don't mean like actual Pop-Tarts. The last time I had Pop-Tarts was like these Pop-Tart minis or whatever a couple of years ago, but I haven't actually eaten like actual Pop-Tarts in a very long time.
The last time I had one was 2009, 2010.
I don't even remember the last time I actually had an actual Pop-Tart.
Yeah,
but it was definitely years ago.
For me, it's been that long. I mean, Pop-Tarts was a sponsor of NASCAR a while back. Which, speaking of which, you also mentioned on the Instagram DMs racing games you wanted to touch on. We had this conversation before we hit the recording session where the NASCAR gaming franchise has been. But before we get into the NASCAR gaming franchise, we touched on the Cars of the Disney Cars video game franchise that are based off the movies. You said you played Cars 1 and Cars Made International. Those are the only two, yes?
Those are the only two.
Can you explain to the listeners what the Cars video game is? And from what your experience, how you enjoy playing the game?
Well, also, I guess I could say as far as I gotta touch on the soundtrack because some of those songs I have on my YouTube playlist. Excuse me. I'll get to a few of them in a minute. One of them is my absolute all-time favorite. Excuse me, especially as far as the playlist is concerned. There's one song in particular, I'll get to it in a minute, that I played every single race. I made sure to nonstop because I just love that song so much as a kid. But I'll get to that in a minute though. But as far as playing the game is concerned, I did always love being able to do some quick races or whatever or whatnot. I think I enjoyed, obviously, the Pistons the most. I think I did those probably the most. Obviously, the story was great. I absolutely loved playing the story. The story was phenomenal. The story was amazing. I enjoyed doing that when I got the chance to do that. But obviously, the racing aspect of it was always fun. Always enjoyed the racing whenever I played that game. So that was always cool. That was always fun. And not to mention, this game, Cars 1, this game is an open world game. So you get to go around all these different areas. You get to explore Radiator Springs, Willys Butte, all these different areas of the Cars franchise that was in the franchise up to that point. So it was much the best of both worlds. You get the chance to race, and it was an open world game. You could just drive and go anywhere. So I had a lot of fun with that, especially as a kid. That was a lot of fun to do. So that's one aspect of it, for sure. And then obviously got to touch on the soundtrack. The soundtrack in this game, I swear to God, it's like, bro, this is a movie tie-in game. No reason the soundtrack should go this hard. No reason. Oh my God. No reason the soundtrack should go this hard. There are 3 songs that I absolutely loved on this game so much. All Night Drive by All American Rejects is a banger. Absolutely love that song. That's a really good song.
You and me both.
Free Ride is another amazing song.
You and me
That's
both.
another really good one. Free Ride, so good. But, and you might know where I'm going with it. I'm not sure if this was your favorite too. But for me, This was a song I needed to play on every
Wait a minute. Let me guess.
that I ran
Let me
in that
guess.
game.
What I want.
Yes, you took it. Just literally, what I want from Autopilot Off was the song that got me rocking every single time I raced. I love that song.
Dude, you get
It's
passionate
my
over
favorite
this.
song on that game,
You get passionate over it. You're getting passionate over this. It's not even funny.
dude. It got me so heavy into the zone. I have to finish some of these races, I feel like in less than 10 minutes.
Dude, it way less than 10 minutes. Dude, the second the song pops on, you're already in it.
Bruh. Just everything from the lyrics to the guitar riffs to everything in this song is just God tier. Everything about Autopilot Off's What I Want is God tier. It kicks all types of ass.
Now, what about the soundtrack from the movie itself?
Now, of course, the movie soundtrack obviously is an absolute banger. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows it. I mean, you couldn't have started off a movie any better than what Sherry Crows, or whoever you pronounce it, Real Gone. Real Gone is one of the best opening songs to a movie that I've ever seen in my entire life. It gets you right into action right away.
That song in that opening scene is on repeat over and over again in my head.
Yes. Yes, it is.
But there's also another song that you forgot to mention. Actually, no,
What?
two songs. Life is a Highway and
Route
Route 66.
Definitely. Those were also some bangers too. Like, yeah, Life is a Highway and Route 66 are some absolute bangers. I mean, to us 2000s kids, those are some of like our childhood favorite songs, abso-freaking-lutely, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, you probably have seen the memes like, oh, like there's like a meme that's just playing it, and like you have like Shaq or whoever it is just vibing to it or whatever. You probably have seen those memes at this point, maybe.
I think I have.
Where it's like the 2000s kids, where it's like it just pictures Shaq, whoever it is, just vibing to it, like it's 2000s kids on the bottom, but then I think it's up on the top. It says, "Oh, it's just a song" or whatever.
Oh, I've seen that. Brandon, he was just on here too. Brandon even sent me that. I know what
Like, dude,
about.
these were more than just songs. They were way more than just
Dude,
songs.
These were nostalgia song. No, it screams nostalgia.
Yes, nothing more.
It screams nostalgia.
Nothing more, nothing less.
I tell you, Cars 1, the video game itself and the movie itself screams nostalgia, period, to me. You forgot to mention the mini games in Cars 1. The video game I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. The mini games were pretty fun too. They were not my go-to, but they were fun. They were fun. Like obviously the pit stop challenge was really fun. Tractor tipping it definitely had some of its challenges too.
You remember
yeah,
we
it's
did
challenges
that?
every now and then.
You remember we did that in the same room? What was it? 5 years ago?
I do remember that.
We were going nuts that day. We were having so much fun.
We were having way too much fun. You could tell we were having way too much fun with that.
We also made a national that day where I think we did a Cars 1 too. But on Made a National, I remember vividly, we did tractor tipping as well.
Oh yeah, I sucked at mainly because we were on the Wii controls.
Well, you weren't used to the Wii. I think it was your first time ever on the Wii, period. I think.
As far as playing that game on the Wii was concerned, yes. I mean, I played the Wii before,
Okay,
but
so yeah,
I've never owned a Wii console. I've only played the Wii at like other friends' houses or whatever. I've never actually owned a Wii console before.
but you played it.
But I've played the Wii numerous times, but I just never owned one. Like I've always played the Wii. I've always known how it works, but I've just never owned a Wii console. I've always spent my years of my youth playing it at other friends' houses and stuff like that, or family or whatever.
With the Wii, I could tell that you were getting used to the handling on the controls because you had to make movements with the controller. You don't just hold it in one place, you got to make movements with it. as you learned.
And I hate that. I'm not
What?
used to that, and I don't like that, to be honest.
You what?
I hate that. I'm not too big a fan of that. I hate it.
No, there was actually a setting with a nunchuck that you can just actually just hold the controller stationary and just use a nunchuck and let the nunchuck do the work. Because
But where is the nunchuck is my question. So where's the nunchuck then?
it was literally right in front of us and we didn't even use it. We stuck with the Wii,
Well,
we
that's an oof.
stuck with the Soul Wii controller regardless. But regarding the tractor tipping mini,
If I would have known it was right there, I would have used it.
what?
If I would have known it was there, I would have used it.
All the way.
Yes,
Remind me next time.
definitely.
When we played Cars made a national on the Wii, we did the tractor tipping scene or the tractor tipping mini game. You said you weren't that good at that, yes? Because it was on the Wii controller.
As far as the Wii was concerned, but put me on the PS2 with it, then I'm much better. Way better.
With Cars made a national with the mini game with tractor tipping. I remember you said this vivid. I remember you saying this vividly about Frank that he chases you in that one, but in Cars 1, you have to avoid him. Made a national, he chases
Pretty much.
I remember you mentioned that. I remember you mentioning that. I remember that vividly.
It literally just hunts you the down the entire time. Not to mention, there also was another Cars game I played when I was little too. If you ever played the Leapster, there was a little thing like taught you a lot of things. Like it's like another like little console thing. It was called a Leapster. But I had a Cars, like I guess you could say video game on a Leapster. And I'm not sure if anybody's played it before, but they had this one section where you went through like Frank's area and everything. And it's like to be honest, it was honestly a lot more terrifying for me playing it there than it was on, the PS2 version, because you basically, like, Frank is basically chasing you, but in the left side corner of the screen, you can see how close he's getting to you in like a rear view mirror. And when he's getting closer, he gets bigger, basically.
And you're saying that terrified you.
So it's much more terrifying there. It was kind of terrifying, to be honest.
As a kid, that was terrifying to you.
Yep, and that's pretty much the only way. Until he comes into the frame, that's the only way that you know he's catching you. You look at a rear view, you literally have a whole rear view mirror on the left-hand side corner of the screen. And when he's approaching you, he continues to get bigger and bigger as he approaches you. It's actually kind of terrifying.
Did you have nightmares at the time?
I don't think so, but it was still terrifying.
Even so,
I just figured that was a little something I ought to point out.
This was on the Leapster, yes?
Yes, this is a whole different thing. I just figured it was something I figured I'd bring up. Just more Cars
Stuff.
lore. Just more history, more of my Cars history as a kid. I figured I'd just bring it up.
We've touched on the Cars video game franchise. We touched on the movies itself. But the video games, you said racing games as a whole on where they're at right now. You said racing games, period. We mentioned before this recording the NASCAR side of things and where they're at right now. We haven't had a NASCAR console game since October of 2021. October 28th, 2021 to be exact, with the release of y'all probably know where I'm going with this. For those who are NASCAR gamers, myself included, NASCAR 21 Ignition. The absolute abomination NASCAR 21 Ignition. When we saw the screenshots, the trailers 3 years ago, I remember me personally, I don't know about other people out there, but for me, I was hyped. But then gameplay footage came out and the game itself came out. All that hype went down the drain because of how
Unfortunately,
because of how much of a glitch fest NASCAR 21 Ignition is.
And it really sucks because I was one of those who was honestly, I wasn't overly hyped, but I was hyped enough. And I was like, you know what? This is new. It's not heat. I'm giving it a chance, and I really want to see how good this is. And here's the thing. I did not play NASCAR 21 Ignition until a whole year later. I didn't get the chance to play it when it first came out in 2021. But I was able to I ended up getting it, I think, in late 2022, a whole year and a half later. And when I first, actually, no, I played it as a demo first, actually. I played a demo first on my Xbox in the middle of 2022, but I ended up getting the actual game itself later that year in 2022. But I first played it, and I didn't even think all that bad when I first started playing. When I first picked it up, it wasn't that bad. I didn't think it was all that bad. I thought some people were kind of overreacting a little bit when it first came out. But I gave it a try for myself, and I didn't think it was that bad. But the more I've played it, and obviously, again, I haven't touched it. This is also coming from someone who hasn't touched this game in over 2 years at this point now. I haven't touched this game since November of 2022 when I refused to touch it again. This game sucks. This game is terrible. This game might just be the worst NASCAR game ever produced outside of the original NASCAR Heat for the PS1 and maybe a few others.
You still remember that day you played NASCAR
sucks.
Heat for the PS1, don't you?
Yes, unfortunately.
Wait a minute, didn't you say NASCAR Heat for the PS1 was worse than Ignition?
And don't get it twisted, it still is. Oh, it still is.
I was about to say, you changed your mind?
Trust me, I am not changing my mind on that by any means. That is still the worst NASCAR game I've ever played in my entire life.
The worst NASCAR game, period.
Ignition's only just exactly worse, but it's only just a teeny bit better.
And NASCAR Heat for the PS1, you're saying it's the worst NASCAR game, period.
It is. It sucks. I don't like that game at all. I freaking hate the game. That game is trash.
Even though you won a race or two on that game.
And like I said then, I'm still saying it now. Just because of the fact that I dominated and won Dover that day, still does not change my opinion on that game.
Still to
I'm
this
not,
day.
I said it too, because I am not going to just be one. I was not going to sit there and be one of those people like, oh, now because I've won a race, oh my God, I love it now. No, the game still sucks. The game is still trash. I do not like it.
You can't even spin somebody out. That's how bad the game is.
And then not to mention, your race, doesn't even matter what racetrack you're, even the freaking plate tracks, man. The cars are just so freaking tight to the point where, like, you literally, I feel like, sometimes can't do anything.
And you literally had to get off the throttle, even at the plate tracks of Daytona and Talladega.
And you shouldn't have to do that.
Dude, be grateful you have not done the road courses. Be grateful.
And I never want to.
Oh, you never will. NASCAR Heat for the PS1 is already bad enough. Just imagine how the road courses are.
Probably even worse.
Yeah, it's worse. It's worse. Again, be grateful you didn't do the road courses that day.
And I never freaking want to. Ever.
Wait a minute. Did you do them on Ignition, the road courses?
I don't remember if I have or not. I might have tried, but I don't think I did. I did try Bristol Dirt, and it sucked.
Can you compare and contrast real quick 21 Ignition and NASCAR Heat for the PS1?
To be real, it almost feels somewhat like I'm playing the same game. Somewhat. Both games, it's hard to pass. Both games, it's hard to drive the tracks. Both games, the cars want to just drive next to the fence, even when you're not even pushing the car up next to the fence. It's like the game is just so bad. Now, one thing I will definitely give the edge on Ignition for is its paint booth. Its paint booth is actually really, really good. That's one thing I can definitely give Ignition on. Its paint booth was actually really nice. It brought back the the creativity aspect of it again that we were missing from the Heat games, because the Heat games did not have at all any kind of like creativity whatsoever. You were just given the same basic paint, like you were just basically just given like the exact same freaking paint designs and just had almost nothing to work with really. So Ignition did the they did the Eutechnics route and allowed you to create any kind of paint schemes that you want to create of your own accord. And I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing that. Of course, though, this is a racing game. So if I want to actually, put these cars where the rubber meets the road, the gameplay's got it good. And unfortunately, it isn't. It's not good.
Some people say that it's worse, NASCAR 21 speaking, that it's worse than NASCAR Heat Evolution. And that's saying something.
That's what I'm like. It's bad when at the time, what was considered the worst NASCAR game ever created, NASCAR Heat Evolution from 2016, is being said that that's better than the most recent game that came out just literally just less than 3. Dude, we're in some hard times. And not to mention the sad part is NASCAR console gaming has been on some really hard times for a very long time now.
I'd say since 2007, that's when the cracks begin. That's when the cracks begin to form on the dam in that aspect. Though
Pretty
some
much,
people would
unfortunately.
argue when NASCAR 2005 Chase for the Cup came out, that's when the cracks began to form. And then
that's what I have heard from a lot of people say too, that they felt like they felt like NASCAR Thunder 2004 was the last actual like good, like actually good. Like, well, not well, actually no. I mean, to me, this is just my opinion, but the last good NASCAR game that we actually got, in my opinion, was like NASCAR Insight Line and like NASCAR 14, where the last actually like decent or good NASCAR game we actually got.
Some people will tell you that NASCAR
is awful.
14 and
15 is not good.
Some people will say that NASCAR 14 is a bad one. It's one of the bad ones. At least that's what some would say.
To me, it's not. To me, it's not bad. I mean, I guess some of those people do have merit to saying how that they are bad. But to me, it's not a bad game by any means. To me, I think it's good. I think it's a good game. Now, obviously, if we're gonna go by like what do I think is the best of the Eutechnics games, like putting even my biases aside, because to me, I feel like the best of them is NASCAR 2011 to me. Of course, that's the one that everyone dunks on nowadays. I didn't even know people really dunked on this game that hard, but everyone praises NASCAR Inside Line. So I do have to agree with them to a degree that NASCAR Inside Line probably is the best out of the Eutechnics games.
Which it is.
And it definitely is. So I can't fully disagree there. It probably definitely is the best out of the Eutechnics games that I've played. Obviously, I own 4. So it definitely probably is the best out of the Eutechnics game. But of course, there also obviously is this massive debate on what is the greatest NASCAR game to ever come out. And obviously everyone's go-to answer is NASCAR Thunder 2004. And it's been that way for a long time. Like you ask anybody that's a NASCAR fan and ask them what their favorite game is, it always trickles back to Thunder 04. Always.
Dude, even for me.
And I'll be real. To a degree, I can't blame them. I get it. I understand. I do understand why people feel that way. It's because of the fact that game is so in depth, and not only the racing good, but it's because also it has the last really good in depth career mode.
You also had even though it was formed on NASCAR 2011 Inside Line, 14, 15, as well as the Evolution, etc. The way how they portrayed the television coverage on NASCAR Thunder 2004, even though it was for MRN, PRN, EA Sports, and all that, but the way how they presented that, the television coverage for that in the game, spot on. From the opening scene to the driver's history and statistics. You don't see that anymore.
You don't. You just there is like there's no good presentation when you do these races anymore. It's just straight up. It just straight up just takes you into the race and everything else, and you don't even get the chance to see any of that. Like literally Thunder '03 and Thunder '04 were the last games to actually take you through like the MRN broadcasting and everything else. You literally don't have that anymore, and it sucks. It really, really sucks. It sucks that from '05 onward we haven't had anything like that.
Now, there's also a big debate on which NASCAR game out of NASCAR Thunder 2004 and NASCAR Racing 2003 season, out of those two, it's a debate which out of those two is the best one, period. I don't know about you, but it's difficult to judge which out of the two is the best one. For me personally, it's difficult to judge because I
Unfortunately,
played and own both.
unfortunately, I haven't played NASCAR racing. 2003. I haven't played NASCAR racing 2003. I haven't touched that game ever in my life, so I can't even like actually really join the debate on that one because I haven't even been able to play that one yet. But I've obviously played and owned Thunder 2004, so I absolutely love Thunder '04. So I mean, I'm going to go with that one, I guess, for
With
now.
NASCAR Racing 2003 season, you've obviously seen footage on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I have.
With NASCAR Racing 2003 season, not only you have the 2003 season, but we're in 2024, and obviously with all these mods, you can download all these mods from 2004, 5, and later years, even from 2002 and backwards. You can download all these
Yeah,
mods from all these different years and different eras of not just NASCAR, but would you believe it? I think even they have IndyCar mods, monster truck. Dude, NASCAR Racing 2003 season has literally everything and anything you can think of. Seriously.
pretty much.
But it's only for PC and not for the consoles.
That's what sucks about it.
Same for iRacing, because that's also only for PC users. Well, for now, because from what I've heard, iRacing is coming to the consoles in a year from now, in a year or two from now.
Pretty much.
With NASCAR, apparently, from what I've heard, being one of the first, if not the first, game from iRacing to come out for the consoles next year. But
Pretty much.
in regards to the NASCAR games that you've played, can you rank the NASCAR games from worst to best or best to worst? Whichever works for you.
That's pretty crazy. So I'll definitely go from like worst, definitely from worst to best. That's for sure. So obviously, you already know what my pick is for obviously the worst NASCAR game ever. It's the original NASCAR Heat for the PS1. I absolutely hate that game. I absolutely freaking despise that game. I mean, not just because of the fact that it's for the freaking PS1, but the game is just so undrivable. It's just so unplayable. I just cannot get behind it. I just don't like it at all. What freaking ever. NASCAR Ignition falls right behind that at number 2. So there's like, there's that. So Ignition's right behind that. Heat Evolution is right behind that. NASCAR Heat 3, I was actually, you know what? No, NASCAR Heat 2 is right behind that. Game is garbage. It's another one that's not all that good. Heat 3 is right behind that. Same thing, not very good. I'm gonna put Heat 4 right ahead of that. And before I even say what I'm gonna say for the next 2 Heat games, obviously these 2 are the best of the Heat games, but they are obviously absolutely nowhere close to being as good as any of these next number of games at frickin' all. And I've played Heat 5 so much in the last like 4 years that I absolutely freaking despise this game. I absolutely hate this game.
What?
I despise Heat 5. I absolutely hate this game.
Let me guess. You're playing it for so long and so much, it's starting to get old.
Dude, I've been league racing and playing on this game for so long that I wish I wasn't doing this. I do this every week. I'm only playing this game, and out of all the games on my PlayStation 4 that I've spent the most hours on, it's this piece of shit game.
Let me again, because you're
And it's
on it for
all
so much and for
because
so
of
long,
league
it's
racing.
getting old.
And because of all of the races that I either have gotten screwed on, have either gotten taken out of, or just everything that's been wrong, that's gone wrong for me when it comes to league racing, or anything in general that has to deal with lag or any kind of issues that these Heat games have always had, I just despise this game. Like, and Heat 4 are the same problems. So it's like Heat 4 and Heat 5, I despise these games. I hate these games. And it makes me even more mad because it took, I mean, Heat 5 obviously is the best out of the Heat series, but the fact that it took over 5, almost 6 some odd games to actually get a good one is ridiculous. It should not take you this long, 704 games, monster games, motorsports games, to actually put out a good or a decent product. Like, it's like you're telling me you want me to shelve $60, if not more, of my money for a game that feels like it's not even finished, or that feels like it's not even put together with any passion, drive, or effort. And like, when my car touches the apron, it should not spin like a top of like a block of ice. It should not just spin because I barely put a tire and a half on the apron. That doesn't make sense.
Wait till you play NASCAR.
I mean, not to mention,
2005.
not to mention, these games are so buggy as hell that they're almost sometimes borderline unplayable. Not to mention, sometimes you'll get, like, this is just even me recently, and just in general, sometimes you will get into a lobby that either you've been in for a while, or that you've kept, or that the owners kept up for a little bit, and then you get into it, especially in nowadays, because you've had this game for a little while now. If you keep a lobby open for a lot longer than probably, like, I'd say like 20, 30 minutes, the entire lobby just freaking lags. The whole lobby lags, and it's undrivable. It's unplayable. That's how bad it is. It's that bad. But moving on, aside from my little tangent, so yeah, Heat 4, then Heat 5. I hate this game. Like, I really do. I despise this game. But anyway, outside of that, moving on. After that, I'm going to put, let's see here. I'm going to put NASCAR 15 right after Heat 5. NASCAR 15 is another one that over the years is just, for me, it's just become bad. I don't like NASCAR 15 either. I hate this game. I'm not a big fan of NASCAR 15. I'm going to put
it's
NASCAR
a copy
14
paste of NASCAR 14, right?
Oh, yeah, I know. And it's got the same problems that even NASCAR 14 had half the time. So,
Such
yeah,
as?
it just a complete copy and paste. Like, the starts, I even had this problem too when I first started playing the game. When I first started playing NASCAR 14, it is in 2014 when the game first came out. In 2011 and also Inside Line, they were rolling starts. Like, you didn't have to worry about actually driving the car to the start finish line. But when I first started playing when I first started playing 14, I had no idea. I went into this one thinking that the car was going to just go and you wouldn't have to worry about about having to actually, drive the car. The second I even stepped on the gas, I had so much wheel spin that I freaking wrecked and had to restart the race because I didn't expect that. I hated that. I literally was like, what is this? When I first started playing the game and that happened, I was like, what is this? What is with this wheel spin? This is stupid.
Hard to believe NASCAR 14.
So that's an aspect of both games I hated. I know, it's so crazy. But I hated that aspect of both of those games. I hated that shit. And then even the AI, too. The AI races really terribly sometimes, too. Especially if you put it on a certain difficulty, at some point, they'll just die, basically. They'll all just stop. And unless you can avoid them, unless you go all the way down to the bottom to avoid them, you're running smack dab into the back of them. The AI basically races brain dead, to be real.
Any other problems?
I've always hated the AI on the Eutechnics games. They're just so freaking brain dead, it's unreal. But other than that, those are really my only problems with it. Moving on. So 15, then 14. I'm gonna put Inside Line next, just because of the fact that I like Inside Line, but it's not one of my apps. Actually, you know what? No, I'm actually going to change it up. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to put NASCAR 09 after 15, and then put NASCAR 08 right behind that.
You're talking about the PS2
So there's
version,
those,
right?
and I think yeah, the PS2 versions. I never played the PS3 versions of those. So there's that. I think, are we getting into the top 10 now? I don't even know if we are. I doubt it.
I need to create a list if we're going to. You said NASCAR Heat for the PS1, Ignition,
So yeah, so
5,
Heat,
4,
Ignition.
3, 2, Evolution.
So I put, original Heat, Ignition. Yeah, original Heat, Ignition, Heat Evolution, Heat 2, Heat 3,
4,
Heat
5,
4, Heat 5,
14,
15,
15.
14,
So that's 9
09.
already.
So that's 10 so far. So that's like 9 or that's like 10 so far. And then 08 right after that. So yeah, that's at least like 11 so far. Okay. So yeah, we're pretty much going into the top 10 now, actually, of these games, actually.
And what's number 12?
So after 08, I'm gonna put, let's see here. I'm gonna put NASCAR Inside Line after that. It's a good game, but it's not my absolute favorite by any means, but it's a solid game for what it's able to do. So I'm gonna put that there. I want to put Inside Line right there.
13?
I'm gonna put NASCAR. Let's see here. I'm probably gonna put one of the EA games here. I'm gonna put. I guess I'll put NASCAR Thunder 2003 there. It's a good game by all means. It's not terrible, but it's not my number one favorite by any means either. But I'll put that there. It's a solid game.
Car all the time.
It's so funny because I literally just got NASCAR Thunder 2003 in the mail today, and I put that bitch on. This is how I know you were me in that damn game, because I can tell you had them all the way off. I put that on limited, and the car did not nearly spin out or nearly get squirrely as bad as it did when you have the assist all the way off.
You mean to tell me you put it on limited and you didn't have wheel spin, you didn't lose the car, none of that?
I lost it a little bit through some of the corners,
so
just
you
a teeny
did lose
bit,
the car
but that's
then.
only if you were over driving it a little. So I didn't, but I wasn't. But the thing is, the difference is I was actually able to control it this time, and not to mention, I've only run one race so far. I ran it at Lowe's, basically Charlotte, and there were some times where if I wasn't careful, then yeah, it would almost spin out a little bit, but it would the spin out ratio and the car getting loose. What I mean is, it was only getting loose in the corners. It wasn't getting loose the second I turned the freaking wheel. I was actually able to go into the corner and not spin the frick out or almost spin out.
Even on the
I was
straight.
actually able to drive the car. I was actually able to keep it straight and drive the freaking car.
Even on the straights.
Yes. With no issues.
And you say you got that in the mail today.
Crazy. Yeah. So now at this point, I have every PS2 NASCAR game that's come out since NASCAR 2001 back in 2000. So I have them all. I got them all.
Even 2005.
It's complete. Yep. I got 2005 a while back.
And 07.
So I got them all. Yep. Got them all.
God damn.
I'll get to some of those in a minute. I know, right? It took me a good couple years to put all this together, but I finally did it.
Welcome to the club. But
yeah,
elaborate on Thunder 03.
Anyway, but yeah, Thunder 03 is gonna be right there. I'm gonna put. Let's see here. After that, I'll put Thunder 03 there. I'll put NASCAR 2001 next. 2001's a really good one. I like 2001, but there are just some other ones that just outclass it. That's why I'm putting it there.
That's 14. What's number 15?
So I'm gonna put Chase for the Cup 2005 next. It's another solid one. It's a solid one, but again, like I just said a minute ago, there's a bunch of other ones that completely outclass it. And then after that, I'm gonna put, because we're getting into the very nitty gritty now. when it comes to NASCAR games for the PS2. So, well, actually, not even just that. I want to put I forgot one for the Technics. I want to put NASCAR 2011 next. One of my definitely. I mean, a lot of people don't like this game, but for me, it's one of my all-time favorites. For me, it was only the second NASCAR game I had ever had because unfortunately, I wasn't like a lot of the other kids or a lot of the other guys years ago that grew up with all the EA games. The only EA game that I had for years was NASCAR Thunder 2002. That's the game I played nonstop forever until I got NASCAR 2011. And I bought 2011 for my birthday back in 2011 when it came out, and I absolutely fell in love with the game. So, yeah, that was my second NASCAR game. I know, crazy. And it sucks, too, because unfortunately for me, I just never really saw the other EA games whenever they came out during the times when they did come out. That's the reason why I didn't buy them. Because I just never saw them whenever they were out. I just didn't see them anywhere. So I got pretty unlucky, unfortunately. But I have them all now, so it's fine.
Number 17.
So after that, I did just say, was it 2011? Yeah, 2011. So then after that one, then I'm going to put, for 17, I'm going to throw in, I want to put NASCAR Thunder 2002 there. I mean, NASCAR Thunder 2002, obviously, like I just said a minute ago, it's my favorite. It is one of my favorite NASCAR games of all time. It's the first one I ever played. But obviously, after playing a bunch of the other ones, there's obviously some of these other ones here completely outclass it. So I'm going to put NASCAR Thunder 2002 there.
18.
What else did I not mention yet? Good Lord. Oh, so yeah, we're definitely getting really into the nitty gritty here. So I'm actually going to you know what? Let me retract that statement a minute ago. I'm going to put NASCAR 07, then NASCAR Thunder 2002. Because 07 is really good. I actually really like 07. 07's pretty solid. It's a solid game. But I want to put Thunder Road 2 over 07. So just switch that up for a minute. I forgot about 07. I'm going to put 07 first, then Thunder 2002.
All right. 19.
And then 19th, I'm going to put NASCAR 06 Total Team Control. That's the second EA game I ever played. Well, ever got, I should say, as far as owning it is concerned.
You mean?
Yeah, ever actually owning it. So there's that. But aside from that, yeah, I'm going to put NASCAR 06 there. And I think we're pretty much at the very back half end now.
We're at the 20s.
So yeah, 06.
20.
So yeah, 06, I'm going to put that there. And I guess it pretty much was, I guess for the most part, I guess we kind of all knew this was probably going to come around, probably. My favorite NASCAR game, I think up to this point right now, it's NASCAR Thunder 2004.
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, at this point, isn't it obvious? Isn't it like just blatantly obvious, I think, to anybody? I think if you ask anybody in the last like 20-something years, if not like at least like the last 16-something years, what their favorite NASCAR game is, more than half of the fan base is going to say NASCAR Thunder 2004.
And I have to agree because of how much.
And I'll be honest, you can't blame them.
Because of how much detail there is.
And it's just a simple fact. And here's the thing. The game is not perfect by any means whatsoever. The rival system, in my opinion, is like the most.
That the game is perfect.
Oh, my God.
Some would argue that the game is perfect.
It's not. It's not. It's not perfect. I mean, it's not perfect by any means. It's not. Don't get me wrong. The game is amazing. It's my favorite NASCAR game currently right now. But this game, I would be lying to you if I told you this game doesn't infuriate me sometimes. Because it does. This game sometimes makes me mad. It does boil my blood sometimes. One, and I think the biggest thing I have to talk about is the rival system. The rival system in this game is absolute dog shit. It's ridiculous. I hate the rival system in this game.
Some would tell you. Don't
get me wrong.
A lot of people would tell you that it's brutal, the rival system.
It is. It is. And they aren't wrong when they say it. And it's brutal for all of the wrong reasons. No, don't get me wrong. It's very realistic. And here's the thing. I'm not saying that the rival system is the worst thing in the world. Me saying it's dog shit is not an absolute massive knock on it. Because I am not opposed to having a rival system. I like it. Not to mention, I like that in 2005 and forward, they still kept it. But my gripe with the rival system isn't the fact that it exists. Here's the thing, if you jump on NASCAR Chase for the Cup 2005 and you play that game up until about like 09,
Yes.
and you play those games with the rival system,
PS2
the rival system in those games,
but go ahead.
but still, you play those games and the rival system in those games, I feel like is for the most part very well done. When it comes to the rival system in those games, yes, you'll have drivers that'll get mad at you, especially if you hit them a certain way. But what I had noticed, especially when playing 06 for the first time, is if you just ride behind them for a little bit, they won't hit you anymore. Eventually, they'll calm down, and then they'll get back into the green, and they might even become your ally for a little while. But in this game, when you get a rival, you are stuck with that shit. Especially when you're doing career mode, you are stuck with that for what feels like forever, especially if it means dude, sometimes the slightest little tap sets these guys off. Yeah. You can barely rub against somebody and it's a freaking 30. Or sometimes you might not even touch a car at all and it's a freaking 30, if not even more.
Dude, a kiss to the bumper or with the fender, it's at 30.
It's a 30. And sometimes you won't even touch them. And that's a freaking 30. And like I just mentioned a minute ago, especially if you're playing career mode, you are stuck with that. That carries over into the next race and the race after that. So let's say you have like a 30%, like you have a negative 30 rival. You can bump that down during the race and even the next couple of races. But let's say if this is a driver that you've gotten into multiple run-ins with and they're like red hot steaming mad at you, they will make it their mission every time you get to their back bumper. Doesn't matter if you're lapping them or trying to pass them. They will make it their mission every single race, especially let's say if they're like a negative 60 or, God forbid, you have a negative freaking 90 rival. They will make it their absolute mission to door slam the fuck out of you every chance they get, and they will wreck you no matter what. It is ridiculous. And sometimes they'll be that for no reason.
Worst case scenario, negative 100.
And I've never gotten to that point yet, but the highest I think I've gotten is a negative 72 or like a negative 80 rival, I think.
For me, it's negative 100. Have fun with that.
Don't get me wrong. Again, they were going for a more realistic, stance with that. And I totally applaud that. I'm all for that. But they made it so to where it's like almost impossible to race sometimes without barely sometimes touching somebody. And it's like if you barely even touch someone sometimes, they get so angry at you that they're already a negative 30 rivals than more than like 10 laps into a race. And you especially don't want it, especially if you are passing lap cars. Because the back markers will do it to you as well.
It's not just a NASCAR.
I cannot tell you how many times I've watched Kamikaze streams and he's over here getting mad at rivals every single freaking stream.
Oh, that YouTuber. He's had his fair share of rage, as have you.
Yep.
Reminiscent of when we especially played NASCAR Thunder 2003 simultaneously.
Don't remind me.
You mean to tell me you put that on limited today? You had no problem.
And I had no problem. I could, even if I got loose sometimes, I could still drive the heck out of the car. And I didn't wreck once. Not once. Not one time did I wreck.
Yeah, without the assist. It's a different story.
You turn all the assists off, cars are impossible to drive.
Well,
I still don't know how I won Darlington with that car being as impossible as to drive.
But you did anyway. Ain't that the only?
I don't know how.
Wasn't that the only win that day on that game? I think it was.
I think that's one of my only wins on NASCAR Thunder 2003. I think still to this day.
And yet you did it without any assists.
No assists.
Hey, if you could do it then, you could still do it now.
It's so crazy.
But NASCAR isn't the only thing in the franchise that you played. Touching on the racing games, we also have Formula One games on the spectrum.
That is true.
You said you haven't played F123, yes?
I have not played F123, and I don't plan on doing so, to be honest.
Why is that?
Because to be frank with you, as far as the F1 games recently are concerned, they have started to also become exactly like how the Heat games have started to become. Well, the Heat games already are. The F1 games right now are not all that good either, to be honest. They're really not all that good.
So you're saying, in other words, it's a lost cause.
They're not nearly in as big of a lost cause, I would say, obviously, as NASCAR is with their games right now. But it doesn't help the simple fact that EA has taken over as far as, making these games is concerned. Because when Codemasters was doing these games, for the most part, Codemasters got these things right. But having EA do it now, it's basically what you would expect from EA. Because EA is another developer that's gone to shit now too. That's another one that's completely gone downhill.
Dude,
So that's another one.
All these games you mentioned, NASCAR Thunder 2002, 2002, NASCAR Thunder 2002, 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All those games are from EA Sports.
And it really sucks because EA used to be like the gold standard as far as like sports games and as far as like, especially even like obviously even NASCAR games all those years ago was concerned up until like, the dark ages. Still, like EA for years with Madden, F1, FIFA, freaking like NCAA football and everything, and just NBA and everything. They just, dude, EA used to be the gold standard, especially EA Sports and everything for sports games and so many different things. Like these games used to be so freaking good. Nowadays, man, you'll be hard pressed to find anybody that thinks any game that EA puts out nowadays, especially anything that's like sports related, is any type of good whatsoever. You'd be hard pressed to find anyone that thinks that this stuff is good. Heck, especially when it comes like even like to Madden nowadays, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that thinks any of the last like 10 some odd Madden, like any of the Madden games that have come out in the last 10 years have been any good at all. There has not been a good Madden game since Madden 12. That's how long it's been.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. And I've played every single Madden game up to this point since Madden 13, and none of them have come any close to any of the Madden games that I've played back in the day, like around like Madden 11 and backwards. It's not even close. Not even close. And they continue to fumble the bag every year. Every single year.
It's been over a decade since the last good Madden game. That's sad.
It still is. And you can tell they just don't care. And I say this from experience because playing the last number of Madden games that have come out every single year up to this point, the physics and everything are all the same. The last 5, if not like 6 Madden games have all played the exact same. They're literally, you have the same commentators. You have the same crappy ass physics. You have the same everything for every single Madden game that I've played in the last 5-6 years. And I hate playing these games. The only reason I even play these games nowadays is for league purposes. It's the only reason I even touch Madden games anymore at this point. Because Madden games these nowadays are so infuriating to play.
So you're saying it's a copy and
paste? They're
paste.
Not fun anymore.
You're saying it's a copy and paste every single year.
Every single year, it's a copy and paste. Every year, dude.
Well, I ain't touching Madden anytime soon.
It's a literal copy and paste every single year, man. The same problems have been in the last like 5 or 6 Madden games, last 5, 6 some odd years. And they're not going to change them anytime soon. It just continues to be the same crap every single year. Dude, here's an example. Here's an example as to how far Madden games have fallen as far as gameplay is concerned. You will have someone, you'll snap the ball, you'll have someone that runs a route, and they're wide open. They're wide open, right? There's nobody in sight. You throw it to them, and the second you throw it to them, I'm saying this from a point where you don't have any defenders in the area, or there's no defender that's right next to him. 2 seconds after you throw it, a defender will especially if you're playing like on All Madden, or even on Pro to a degree, especially if you're playing on All Madden though, you'll have someone just jump right in front of it and intercept the ball and pick it off and run it back for a touchdown or however many yards.
So
It's so ridiculous.
Like it just appeared out of nowhere.
They just appear out of, and not to mention, even sometimes you'll even throw like a bullet pass, or you'll just throw just a pass in general, and sometimes these guys just can't even catch. I'll throw a ball to a guy who's wide open, and they won't, and they'll drop the shit.
It's like the game. It's like you're playing a broken game. That's what that is.
But then you know what's even sadder is that the computer, the CPU, or sometimes even people that you're playing against, they'll do the exact same thing that you just did, and they'll complete the pass every time. The pass won't get picked off. The pass won't get dropped. It's completed every single time. Every time.
And yet.
They don't drop it. They don't, like, it never happens. But when I do it, it's either picked off or it drops. And I can't get anything going. It's so infuriating, and I hate it.
Would you rather play Madden or F1, though?
Oh, trust me. I'm playing a racing game over Madden any day.
Oh, you and me both. Touching on F1
I am not a Madden game like that.
Touching on F1 real fast, like we did with the NASCAR games, what's the best? What do we got for the F1 side now?
Well, there's only only a couple of games I can even put here because I haven't played all of the games like I really wanted to over the years. Well, not exactly that, but I just haven't played every single game. But the worst, obviously, being that one PS1 game that we played all that time ago.
F1
recently. I forget what it is. I forget what it's called. Yeah, that's the worst one.
Funny enough, probably. I was just on that game a couple of hours ago before we were recording.
Gross.
But I did win all those times. And, dude, you even won a race yourself.
That is true. Even though I didn't know what the frick I was doing.
But you did win a race. That
is true. So I guess I can give credit where credit is due there.
But you still rank it as the worst F1 game, period.
Still.
Damn.
Did we play 2014? I don't think we played 2014.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Well, then in that case, 2014 ranks right behind that. Well, right after that, excuse me.
I was about to say, you put F1 98 right above F1 14? Damn, that's saying something.
I meant to say right ahead. Excuse me. But yeah, so there's that. So
that was also the game where that was also the game where I ended your Monaco winning streak.
Unfortunately,
you say.
But all streaks come to an end at some point. So I mean, I knew it wasn't going to last forever.
I mean, you had it won, but then you threw it away by going into the bear at the last corner where Anthony knows.
It's that 7 curse, man. It's the 7 curse.
So you blame the 7. So you blame the lucky number 7 then?
Yes.
I swear, something about the number 7. It's something about number 7. That's the highest you can go.
And you can't go any higher than that.
Period. So F1 98, F1 14. That's 2. What is the third one?
All right. So then next after that, then I'm going to put F1 2012.
Let me guess. The handling.
I hate it. I hate the handling. I hate the game. I hate it.
Don't hate the handling. Hate the game. I mean, don't hate the game. Hate the handling.
Oh, and trust me.
What?
Oh, and trust me. I hate the handling.
You get used to it the more you get your hands on it.
Other than that, there's that. I want to put, I think, gosh. I'm going to put NASCAR, not NASCAR, excuse me. F1 2001. I'm going to put that one there. Solid, decent game, but, for the time. But, again, other ones that outclass it. I don't know, even though I played it on the Game Boy Advance and obviously played it at your house on the PS2, I'm going to put F1 2002 just ahead, obviously, of 2001. Again, decent game, especially for the time, but other games outclass it, so I'm putting it there.
You say F1 98, F1 14, F1 2012, F1 2001. What was the other one?
And then 2002. 2002.
I'm surprised since
and then I want to put
the first F1 game you've ever played.
True. But it was on the Game Boy, so I mean, I don't have much leeway on that one, to be honest.
You say that regarding the PS2 speaking,
Pretty much.
but
I want to put F1 2009 right ahead of that.
wait, F1 2002, that was the game where you won Monaco by a country mile.
That is true.
Wait, you said you ranked it 4 years ago, a few days right before lockdown too. You ranked F1 2002 uh an 8 out of 10.
And it still is. It still is an 8 out of 10.
And with F1 2001, you ranked it a 7 out of 10.
And it still is.
What about F1 2012?
4 out of 10.
F1 14,
3 out of 10.
F1 98.
1 out of 10.
For a minute, I thought you were going to say 0 out of 10, though that probably goes to NASCAR Heat for the PS1.
Obviously. That obviously will always have a 0 out of 10.
F1
But anyway.
what do we got?
And then after 2009, then I'm going to put F1 22. Just, meh. I'm not a fan of 22, to be honest. I'm really not.
Why is that?
It's just the simple fact that just, I don't know, man. I haven't even touched F1 22 in so long since I've last ran a league race there. But just, it's easily one of the worst of the current day games that I've played. It just not as much fun. And not only that, but just I think some of the physics and some of the things I ran into while racing just made it just unbearable for me, and I wasn't a big fan of it.
Is it because of the handling?
I don't even remember. I mean, I can't even. I would have to play it again to tell you because I haven't touched it in so long. But for now, that's where I'm ranking it. I guess I'll put F1 21. I'm gonna put 2021. I'm gonna put that one right ahead of it. It's solid, but I'm gonna keep it there. 2013. I want to put that one there. Solid game. Liked it. So there's that. It's gonna toss that there. Which other ones have we played before that I haven't mentioned? Did we play 2010? I don't know if we have.
We did not.
Okay, so I can't rank that one then next. All right. So I think we're pretty much at the nitty gritty now. I think we're pretty much at the end of the road for some of these. This is like actually kind of difficult because the next ones I have here to rank are F1 2020 and F1 2011. And these are two of my favorite F1 games of all time.
Actually, there's another one. There's F1 2000.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one.
You ranked that ahead of F1
So, you know what?
God damn. I didn't know it was that good.
I forgot about that one. So scratch that. Let me put that one I'm going to rank that one a little further down. So I'm going to put that one, I'm going to put obviously 13 ahead of all of that. I'm going to rank that close to where I have, gosh, where do I want to put that? Because that one is a decent one, but it is obviously not my favorite by any means whatsoever. So I want to put that one close. I want to put that one right before. I think I'm going to put that one right before freaking, gosh. I'm going to put that one before F1 2001. I want to put that one just behind 2001. So that's where I'm going to put that. But yeah, now we're down to the nitty gritty here. So this is difficult because these are the last two to rank. Good God. Tell you what, I think for the sake of this one here, I'm probably going to put, God, man, this is so difficult because both of these games are so good and I love both of these games a lot. Both of these games, both F1 2011 and 2020, are my two favorite F1 games of all time up to this point.
You said you played F1 2018 along with F1 2017.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about those. It's only because I haven't played these games in so long. So, actually, you know what? Hold on. Give me a second here. Give me a minute. I'm going to put 2018. So, bump 2013 of like 2 spots. I'm going to put 2017 after, what was the one I said before 2013? What was the one I said before 2013? I forget.
21.
Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna put, actually, you know what? I'm gonna put 21 ahead of that. So I'm gonna put F1 2017 there. Then I'm gonna put
So
2018 ahead of that.
1 then, but before 2013.
So I'm gonna put, so before all of this, I'm gonna bump 2021 ahead of those two. So I'm gonna put 2017 there, then 2018, and then 2021. So that's how that'll rank.
2018, 17, 21. Yes?
Pretty much. So that's how those will rank. I'll rank those like that. This is what happens when you haven't played certain games in so long. Sometimes, and not to mention, this is also what happens when you completely forget you own some of these because you haven't touched them in a freaking while.
Now we're down
But
to 20,
anyway,
2020 and 2011.
pretty much. So now that's what it's down to. So 2013 is there as the third best. That's the bronze medal. So the bronze medal goes to 2013. That gets the bronze. The silver is going to have to go to, gosh, man. Out of these two, I'm not sure which one I really want to decide on. Just need a minute here. Goodness me. Tell you what, I'm gonna just for the sake of it all, 2020 is gonna be there, and then 2011 will be the first rank. Both of them are so good. 2011 obviously is amazing. I absolutely love 2011. I'm so glad that I own it now. And then obviously 2020 is definitely the best of the most recent F1 games that I've played. I literally got 2020 for Christmas when it came out in 2020, and I just could not stop playing it. Like anytime I wasn't doing a league race, when I was just hanging out with my league buddies or whatever throughout the day, I would just jump on F1 2020 and just log some laps or run some races. And I even started, obviously, the my team stuff was what sold me. I think what I enjoyed the most at F1 2020 was racing on my team. I absolutely enjoyed being able to put your team together. It felt like NASCAR 2004 and some of the other games, the old NASCAR games. Being able to put your own team together, your own engine suppliers, your own teammate, and all this different personnel stuff. You were pretty much in charge of all this different. You were pretty much in charge of your race team and the upkeep and everything with your car and all this other stuff. It was so in depth, and I just absolutely loved it. I loved everything about that. And the fact that you had to keep up with your car from race to race made it all the more compelling.
And my team was the big point on F1 2020, along with the classic content, especially with the Michael Schumacher Deluxe, with the 1991 Jordan, the 1994 and 1995 Benetton, along with the F1 2000, the Ferrari F1 2000. 3 of which that I've mentioned, Michael Schumacher won the championship in. 1994 Benetton, the 1995 Benetton, and the Ferrari F1 2000. And you say F1 2011 is at the very top, getting the gold medal. I remember when you played it for the first time that it wasn't that good. Again, your first impression playing it for the very first time.
Well, that was because I had a lack of experience.
How things have changed.
But it's also because of the fact, too, that I enjoy playing that game a lot.
How things have changed within the span of 5 years.
Pretty much. That's for sure.
We touched on racing games, NASCAR games, F1, IndyCar. You played the IndyCar game before when we did the Indy 500 that one time.
Yeah.
It was
that is true.
IndyCar 2005. And touching on IndyCar,
and that's literally the only IndyCar that we have.
What?
That's the only IndyCar game I think that's come out in like the last almost
20
17
years.
Almost 20 years.
In 20 years.
Crazy, dude.
That's another thing too I want to touch on real quick. Motorsport games, they had an IndyCar game in the works, but because of the whole scam that motorsports games has been, the IndyCar game has not happened. They say it's got delayed, but the way how it is, it's not happening. And you know it's bad when NASCAR has ended its license with motorsport games,
Rightfully so, because motorsports games is nothing but a cheat,
which it is,
nothing but a scam,
which it is.
and it sucks.
I don't know if IndyCar is still with the motorsport games alignment though. If they are, shame on them. Which leads me to the question, are we going to see another IndyCar game eventually at some point down the line?
Honestly, I have absolutely no idea. I hope that we do, because I really do want to see a modern take on an IndyCar video game. But until they can get the proper, I feel like until they can get the proper licensing deals and everything done that comes with putting these games together, and until we can actually get some, and in my opinion, also until IndyCar, I feel like can get some actual good marketing in, I don't even know if we'll get one for a long time.
And it's sad because for racing, for the racing gamers like myself, it's going to be another long wait until we get another IndyCar game to come out. Because how I got into Formula One, it was because of F1 2019. And you got into Formula One because of the video games you played, I presume?
Pretty much. I mean, I got obviously, well, do like IndyCar or NASCAR?
Formula One.
Uh, well, like it's like what I've alluded to so many times before. The only reason I'm even into F1 at all is literally because of you. Like that's the only reason I'm even into any of this crap to begin with.
You say crap.
It's the only, like, dude, it's the only reason. It's obviously I give you all the credit because if it wasn't for you, I would not be into F1. Because, dude, before I even met you and before you even got into F1 yourself, I did not give two cares about F1 at all.
You
Just
said
being
that.
honest, I did not care about F1 at all.
I remember you saying that.
Like, I just did not care. Like, I never had watched an F1 race before. I did not care about anything F1 related. I just didn't care.
I remember you saying that. But then I came into your life. And look what's happened.
Pretty much. And I've only been like into this since like 2020. So I'm more of a more recent fan. Like I'm not a longtime fan. I'm not anything massive. I'm just a decently, like recent time fan. I'm not a long time fan whatsoever.
With the NASCAR side of things now, you got into NASCAR because of NASCAR Thunder 2002? Or was it Cars? Or other?
For me, I've told some people this before too. I don't know if I ever told you about it, but like for me, it was pretty for me when it comes to getting into NASCAR, I mainly got into NASCAR not only because of NASCAR Thunder 2002, but it was just the simple fact that I collected obviously a lot of just cars, like a lot of just die-cast cars and stuff as a little kid. But it was also because of the fact that I wasn't also just playing that. I also just loved racing in general and just played a lot of racing games as a little kid. And just for me, race cars were just so freaking cool to me. I just loved seeing bright colored cars with all these crazy different sponsorships and, numbers on the side of the car. I just thought race cars were so freaking cool as a kid during that time period when I was very little. Like literally the second I was even able to walk and talk and everything else, I was already collecting diecast cars and already just playing around with them and started playing racing games and all that. And then started watching that stuff for real. And I instantly just got hooked. I mean, I already loved racing and already loved cars already. So it didn't take much, to be honest. It didn't take much at all. Because I wasn't just a racing fan as well. I also just in general, I've always loved just cars in general. So, but especially race cars. So mine is a very unique story as far as getting into sports. All this is concerned. It wasn't just playing racing video games. It was that also collecting diecast cars and just but also of course just being a guy who just loves cars and just loves racing in general.
We mentioned video games and the Cars franchise and how underrated the Cars franchise is. There was also another thing that is that's also underrated regarding, coincidentally enough, Disney, which again we also touched on briefly in the Instagram DMs. Herbie. the Herbie franchise. You know, the 1963 Volkswagen Beetle. I
Yeah,
rarely
that's
see people
true.
talk about that franchise as well, apart from Bryce, your girlfriend Sandra, who talks about Herbie nonstop.
Yes.
Other than that, you've seen Herbie Fully Loaded numerous times, I'm sure.
Yep, and I do own the VHS. Of course, it's been years since I've last actually sat down and actually watched the film, but yes, I did watch it a lot though as a little kid though. As a young kid, I did watch that movie a lot.
Did you also watch the other Herbie movies? The Love Bug, both
Never
the 97
seen,
version, the
never seen
OG
any of
version.
those.
So the only Herbie movie you've
I've never
seen,
seen them.
the only Herbie movie you've seen then was Herbie Fully Loaded that came out in 2005 then.
Yep, that's the only one I've ever seen with Lindsay Lohan. That is the only one I've ever seen. I have not seen any of the other ones.
If you have Disney Plus, they have the other Herbie movies from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They have the um the rest of the Herbie movies on there. Apart from the 1997 version of The Love Bug, which I think you can find the full version. You can find the full movie of that on YouTube. I don't know if it's still up on YouTube though, but you can try to look. But as far as the OG Love Bug movies concerned, and the other two or three Herbie movies, they should be up on Disney Plus. If you have Disney Plus, you can go give those a watch because they have those along with Herbie Fully Loaded, of course. But that's another one along with Cars. But Cars is slightly, when you compare the two, Cars is above Herbie because, again, with those two into account, I see people talking more about Cars compared to Herbie. If you can
I
explain
can't say I blame them,
as to
to be
why Herbie
honest.
is also to a degree underrated, you're more than welcome to do so.
I mean, I don't have much pull on this though, outside of just watching one Herbie film. But Herbie obviously is iconic in his own right too. I mean, he obviously is, the famous Volkswagen 53 bug. So I mean, he obviously is famous in a very wide reach of people and a wide variety. It's a wide variety of audiences and everything. He is very famous in his own right, and he does deserve some recognition. He does. He does deserve recognition. He is a cool character and everything. So I mean, he does deserve some recognition and some love. But I guess you could say Cars is just much bigger because I guess it just resonated with audiences more. And I guess people just love, I don't know, people just love Cars more, I'd say. I feel like, I don't know.
And to that degree, to that point, I see that because, like I've said moments ago, I see people talk more about Cars than the Herbie franchise because again, because of how underrated Herbie is, more underrated than Cars apparently. And not to mention, I've heard from
That is
some
true.
people that, especially one friend that I keep in contact with, that Herbie Fully Loaded is, again, according to a friend of mine, in his opinion, it's not that good. Though, in my opinion, I beg to differ. But to this point, I
As
can
do I. It's not some
applaud.
classic or anything, but it's a solid movie. It's not a classic by any means, but it's solid.
Not bad, but it's solid nonetheless, to your point, what you just said.
Like it's not bad, it's not great, but it's solid. It's right there in the middle. Like for me, it's like a 6 to a 7 out of 10. It's solid.
Did you know Scott Riggs and Dale Jarrett sponsored the movie in a few races in 2005? The time the movie came out,
I do, knowing that.
Dale Jarrett,
Knowing they were diecast of it.
which I own, Dale Jarrett ran the paint scheme at Sears Point. Scott Riggs the following weekend in the 4th of July race in Daytona. Well, unfortunately for Scott Riggs, he crashed out in that race. Surprised? Because I'm not.
I'm not surprised by any of it.
Wait a minute, there's another movie. Have you seen Driven?
No, I've never seen that one.
Neither have I, but I've heard that that one is pretty bad, to say the least.
Oof. I have heard from some people, yeah, that Driven wasn't very good.
And not to mention very unrealistic.
That's trash.
So looking at the our conversation on Instagram, there's another racing franchise regarding the movies, regarding the film series in the motorsports world that popped in my head that you are familiar of that I've yet to watch for myself, and that is Fast and Furious.
Oh my! You need to watch the Fast and the Furious films, man. You gotta see them, especially some of the earlier ones. The current day ones are really hit or miss, if I'm going to be honest, especially as coming from someone who's a big Fast and Furious fan. They definitely are very, like the more recent ones definitely are very hit or miss. But those early day ones, especially, are some of the absolute best, without a doubt. The original the first Fast and the Furious, in my humble opinion, is the best one, without a shadow of a doubt, easily.
The best one, period. Well, I can see why, because
Yeah, like
it's the one where it started.
but not only just that, but it's the one that really focuses on just like what the ones nowadays, they focus very heavily like on like heists and everything else, and also this crazy stuff. Like the original Fast and Furious, as well as even like Too Fast, Too Furious, Tokyo Drift, they all focus essentially on the racing, the street racing aspect and everything. But it's like the first Fast and Furious story is just, and everything about it is just so much better than, anything the current day ones have ever put out. To me, the last good one that came out was Furious 7. Furious 7 was the last good one that came out. And that came out in 2015.
I figured it came out in 2015. And the ones that came after that, hit or miss. I'll keep that in mind.
They've been hit or miss. Fast 8 wasn't too bad. I saw Fast 8 in theaters. That one wasn't too bad. That one was all right. Fast 9, I did not see in theaters. I just watched it, I think, at someone's house. That one was just okay. And Fast 10, I have not seen as of recently, but I have heard from people that they weren't too big a fan of that one, to be honest. Not everybody's a fan of Fast 10. I mean, some people have liked it, but not everybody's really feeling Fast 10 like that, to be honest.
And what about yourself?
But yeah, I haven't seen it, so I can't really form an opinion. But I don't know.
There was also regarding racing movies. What was it? I had it in my head just now. Days of Thunder.
That's a good one. Obviously, that's a classic.
We touched on it briefly on episode 3.
Obviously, that's a classic. Everybody knows that. So,
Days of Thunder is another one. There was also, I don't know if you've seen this one, Talladega Nights. That's also a classic too.
Now, unfortunately, I have never actually sat down and actually watched the movie itself, but I have seen obviously clips and other things a bit before though, and it is pretty solid. Is it better than Cars though? No.
Funny enough, Cars 1 and Talladega Nights were released in the same year, just a couple months apart. Cars came out first, and then 2 months later, Talladega Nights came out. Some would argue that Talladega Nights and Cars is basically the same film. Only difference is with Cars, it's more kid family friendly. With Talladega Nights, it's more on the adult side of things.
Pretty much. I can't exactly say that they both share the same story, really, because like Ricky Bobby basically gets into an accident at Charlotte, and that keeps him out of the car. Whereas McQueen in Cars 1 just accidentally gets lost in Radiator Springs. So it's like they're two different stories. I mean, yeah, it does kind of both, I guess they're coming to terms with, I don't know. I mean, to me, they're both a different story, in my opinion. Like, one's about a driver being able to find his center again and be able to get back on the racetrack. And then the other's about the other one learning humility and learning that you don't have to live your life in the fast lane every 5 minutes.
There's also
so to me, they're kind of like two different stories.
There's also another racing movie in that sense. In the racing movies aspect, we also have Rush from 2013.
That one I never did see. I've never seen that. I've heard of it, but I've never seen that one.
Question is,
but I do know that one stars like Chris Hemsworth or whatever as James Hunt. I do know that stars like I think it's like Chris Hemsworth, like is James Hunt or some shit.
Yes, aka Thor in the
That's cool.
Marvel universe.
Yep. So that's pretty cool.
Um, seriously though, you need to give Rush a watch. Seriously.
Oh yeah, I gotta recommend. Also, Ford. If you have not seen Ford versus Ferrari, I recommend if anyone hasn't seen that movie. That's a good
That
one.
one too.
I
That
liked
one
Ford
too.
versus Ferrari a lot.
There
I
was
liked that one a
also
lot. That
a
was a
more
pretty good one.
there was also a recent one that came out several months ago. Gran Turismo.
Yes, that is another good one.
So
I
you've
liked
seen
Gran
that one
Turismo.
too.
I have. I haven't seen it all the way through, but I was watching it when I was getting a haircut one day, and I really liked it a lot from what I was able to watch.
So you've seen it, but you haven't seen the whole thing. Is that what you're telling me?
Pretty much.
What part did you leave off, if you remember?
I do not remember.
When you watch it, I would start at the very beginning if I were you to refresh your memory. I would do that if I were you. I swear there's another movie out there that's in the racing world, but regarding documentaries, though, again, in the Formula One side of things, Senna. Have you seen that one?
Nope.
Watch it. Schumacher. Have you seen that one?
Nope.
Again, you need to give that a watch, especially since you're a Michael Schumacher fan.
True.
I'm still wrapping my head around what you said. I think over a month ago or about a month ago, that you said even when Schumacher was winning all those races, if you were a fan of F1 at the time, even when Schumacher was winning all those times, that would get old.
And it does. It does get old watching the same guy dominate an entire season. It
But
does get very old.
but guess
Yes, and
what?
like I've mentioned so many times before, F1 has always been like that.
But guess what? Max Verstappen did not win this past weekend.
Thank freaking God.
That honor went to Carlos Sainz for Ferrari. Not only just that, but a Ferrari won to finish, considering Leclerc finished P2. Yet Carlos Sainz, despite
First since
winning in
Bahrain in
Australia, is still
2022.
jobless for next year. What?
It's his first since that's their first what like one finish since Bahrain in 2022 from what I've heard.
Yes, you're correct on that.
Wild. It's been that long. And this was Max's first DNF since 2022.
Funny enough, Australia 2022 was his last DNF.
Go figure, right?
How fitting is it? His last DNF came at the
God,
same racetrack where he DNF'd last weekend. How fitting is it?
crazy. Very.
But he still got this wrapped up. Still.
There's no way he doesn't. There's no way. And you know what sucks too is that that's what it's gonna take for him to not win races is mechanical failures and stuff like that. It's what it's gonna take for him to not win races, and that really sucks.
Some say I've seen Josh Favell did a video on it on Max Verstappen. Because of Max Verstappen's dominance, it's putting F1 in a very bad light. Because again, how much Max is winning.
I saw that video earlier today.
Looks like
I did watch that video like a couple hours ago.
you
But yeah, he's not wrong to be frank.
but it just goes to show Formula One, it's been like this ever since its inception in the sport. Because in 1950, Alfa Romeo have won, excluding the Indy 500, every single race. Every single race in 1950, Alfa Romeo won. So, yeah, it's been a thing since the very beginning of the sport. But what Max is doing here,
That is true.
it's something that comes once in a generation. So you can love it while it lasts, you can loathe while it lasts, but eventually this sort of dominance is going to die out. Eventually, in other words, it's going to end. Just when will it end? Is the question.
And that unfortunately is something that I don't have an answer to. I don't think anybody does right now.
For now, We're just along for the ride.
Unfortunately, a very long, hard ride at that.
Considering you don't like Max Verstappen, you're going to be in for a very long season. Considering the season of 2024 just started.
Unfortunately, it's more of me having to hear that stupid same Dutch anthem every freaking race and the stupid da 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 Max Verstappen every single week.
I had a friend of mine who keeps saying that on a constant basis.
I can't stand that. Like, don't get me wrong, the song is good and it's catchy, but good lord, am I so sick of having to hear it every single freaking week.
Along with the Dutch national anthem.
Yes. Because this man just continues to dunk on the field every single flipping week.
And what's worse, he has no competition. Not even his own teammate Sergio
and that's what the biggest
can challenge him.
And that's the biggest issue. To me, that's the biggest problem. Is that it's not really, and the thing is, I mean, I think, yeah, the guy that I was watching a few days ago that I just subscribed to put it perfectly. We obviously can't just sit there and just tell Max to stop winning. It's not his fault that this stuff is the way that it is. He just happens to be very, very good at his job. Like, he's not doing anything wrong by winning. I don't like it that he's winning all the time, but he's not doing anything wrong by any means. He just happens to be very, very good at his job. The problem is not only F1's racing package and how terrible it is, but it's also the simple fact that Red Bull has built a car that is so fast that all these other teams cannot keep up. That everyone else in F1 has fallen so far behind, they can't even keep up. They don't even know what to make their cars better. They don't know. Red Bull is miles ahead of the competition. Everyone else is literally playing catch-up, and they've been playing catch-up for a while. They have fallen so far behind, the title gets decided literally after like 3 to 4 some odd races. That's how bad it is,
dude,
right now.
Even after testing or even during testing, they say the championship is over with. That's how you know we're in for a long season. Yeah, predictable season.
Can you blame them? You can't even blame them, to be honest, and I definitely don't. And to tell you the truth, that's honest to God how I was feeling too.
Wait, really?
To be real. Yeah. To me, it was blatantly obvious. I'm like, yep, I'm right there with y'all. Hell, even in Bahrain, when he won the pool, I'm like, yep, here we go.
Dude, he won the season opener by over 20 seconds.
And I knew he would. And of course, it's over his teammate, his own bloody teammate.
Again, not even Sergio Perez, Max's teammate, can challenge him. And that's saying something.
No.
Again, you know it's going to be a long season when literally everyone is saying that Max has got it wrapped up during testing.
Unfortunately.
This will be the last thing to cover up before we end this recording session. With F1, with this recent video that you sent me, by the way, this is a question I want to ask you. I don't think I got your take on it right after I watched it, but I do remember replying to you saying that from what the YouTuber said in the video, I think he's called Rick F1, something like that. Rick is not wrong with the facts that's being said.
Oh yeah, no, he's totally right.
Though.
Like, especially when he says what he said about it.
I want to ask you this though before we close off this recording: is Formula One boring?
It definitely is debatable. To me, right now, it's definitely boring. I mean, when you have the same guy, the same team, the same everything winning every single week, to me, I think it's boring because it's just a simple fact. I mean, dude, I literally was watching the Australian race, the Australian Grand Prix, on that 1 a.m. Sunday night. Well, early Sunday morning, rather. And even with Verstappen out, even with that big game changer, I was still almost literally falling asleep while watching the race. I was that bored.
Not finishing, despite Max pulling out the race for time.
And it was great. And it was great not having Verstappen in there to stink up the joint. But I'm not really much that big of a Carlos Sainz fan either. Even with that, the race was still not all that great. I was still just about falling asleep watching that. It was a massive contrast when you compare that race to then the amazing race that we had at Coda right after that. And I had a much better time. And of course, obviously, part of it is because of Byron winning. But at the same time, for the race itself in general, I was enjoying Coda way more than I was enjoying Australia by a country mile. But of course, yes, it's debatable who it is you ask, if it's boring or not. But to me, it is boring. I don't know, dude.
Rewind the clock a few years to 2021. Some people will say that it is not boring considering how much of a Titanic scrap for the championship Lewis and Max had. How closely tight that was.
I definitely say that for sure. I mean, my goodness, that was the best. That's the best championship battle probably in F1's history, or one of the best for sure. Abso-freaking-lutely. So, I mean, there is that.
Despite
so that's cool
the way how it ended, though.
Despite the blemish of how it ended, it still definitely is, say, easily their best news.
When I mentioned F1 in the year 2021, what do you think of?
I mean, tell you the truth, what I do think of it, obviously you always think of, Hamilton and Verstappen's amazing, battle and such. But unfortunately, of course, I have to also sit there and think of course, Abu Dhabi and Silverstone and just the amount of mess that came from those races. It's just as good of a season as it was. Just some of those small little things too were also kind of a blemish as well. Though,
really great.
The season was still great.
It was a mess, controversially speaking.
Yeah,
it started with controversy.
A little bit of controversy.
Ended with controversy. A bunch of controversy at the end.
And it shouldn't have ended that way, but unfortunately, it did.
I said it then. I'm saying it now. I still say it now. The race should have ended under the safety car.
It should have.
Oh, so you agree with
it? Should have.
Still.
It literally should have. It should have been as if we've known anything from any of the other races. It should have ended under the safety car. It should have.
Yet, it didn't happen.
But of course, it didn't.
Hamilton, a lot of people say that Hamilton was robbed, which to an extent.
And they could be right.
I agree. To an extent, he should have 8 by now. He should have 8.
He should. And he should.
And now look where he's at. At the time of this recording,
literally
below the top 8 in this.
He literally just had, I feel like, one of his worst races of his career.
Let alone the worst start to the new season in his F1 career period.
Possibly. I mean, it's bad when he literally was interviewed after qualifying and said, "I'm used to it."
Dude, that's how you know he's in for a rough ride. Well, he's been in a rough ride at this point.
And that's just the sad part about it, to be honest.
I bet you he's just waiting for next year to jump ship to Ferrari. I bet you he's just waiting for 2025.
I know I definitely am. This season already just feels like a lost cause. And his swan song with Merck, it feels like a lost cause to me.
I think the way how it is right now, it already is. Do you see it improving, though?
That's what it feels like. There is no improvement. He has shown nothing to me right now that he's improving. No. If anything, he's continuing to fall more and more, further and further from what he used to be. Every single season.
Since 2022.
And it makes me so sad. This is not the Hamilton that I know.
Question is, when he goes to Ferrari, I don't know if it's a blessing in disguise or a worse blessing. I say that because what if he makes the move and it doesn't work out? Especially if Ferrari keeps making these awful strategy calls that don't work. Then, yeah, Hamilton's in for it again.
Fear. And that's my biggest fear, obviously, because we already know Ferrari, they are so allergic to prosperity, it's ridiculous. They cannot go, I feel like, one race without fumbling the bag.
Or in NFL terms, fumbling the ball.
Basically. They cannot go just one race without just fumbling all over the competition. Like they just don't know how to not make mental mistakes. They don't know. They don't know how to not do it. They don't know how to not beat themselves. That's their biggest problem.
And they're still trying to figure out that problem. And unfortunately, well, it's a blessing in disguise that their strategy paid off this past weekend in Australia at the time of this recording with, again, the Ferrari 1-2 finish. Carlos Sainz winning the race in the Australian Grand Prix this past weekend with his teammate Charles Leclerc in P2. Hopefully, this is a sign of improvement and a sign of progress. But
it kind of does feel like
considering the way how Red Bull is and the way how Max Verstappen is on top of his game, that may just well be Ferrari's only win this year. I could be wrong, though. I could be wrong. But we'll see down the line.
I do kind of hope that we're wrong, but yeah, I don't know, dude.
Until then, though, let's see what happens down the road. From Japan on, Japan's the next race. From Japan onward to the season finale in Abu Dhabi, we'll see what happens in these next 20 races. Time will tell.
Yeah.
Until then, though, this is
pretty much.
We will end the recording session since we pretty much got what we've got covered up. How the Cars franchise is underrated, how the Herbie franchise is underrated, some racing movies and racing games. And there was another thing too that I want to do at some point down the road is getting in more in-depth detail on these certain racing games that we've touched on, such as F1 2011, for example, and why you rank that as top of the list. But again, in-depth analysis and how far you've come, which is, again, for another recording, because I think we've gone for long enough.
Yeah.
So we will end the podcast episode here on this note. And Bryce, like always, it's been fun doing this with you.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Always fun to be on these. Always fun to do these. Enjoy them.
Enjoy them because we're going to keep doing these whenever a controversial topic pops up or whenever something motorsports related pops up. We come on here, have a chat, discuss it, and get a conversation going.
Yep.
But until the next one, I, Turn4 Productions, signing off the mic as always. And until next time and further notice, peace out, stay safe, and have a good one. Bryce, if you have any final sayings, say it now before I end the recording.
Yep, pretty much. All I got to say, I guess, just in words of the iceberg, just subscribe for more content. And until next time, have a good one.